Okay. So now we have the findings to support it. Do we have a second on the motion to approve it?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, call for a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
Okay, all members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 4-1 with Commissioner Yver absent. Thank you.
Okay, now that says now that we are a categorical exemption. Now, in order for them to do anything, we have conditions of approval of the plan unit development permit. One, he has to record the map, parcel map with the San Benito County Recorder's Office. The applicant shall install standard City of San Juan Bautista residential driveway approach to each parcel conforming to the city standards A7. That the applicant remove and replace all deteriorated and substandard sidewalk with standard 4-inch wide Portland cement concrete sidewalk along the lot frontage of Monterey Street. The applicant shall install a new standard domestic water and fire sprinkler service to parcel 2, including water meters, water utility box, and shut-off ball valve with valve box conforming to city standards B3-3. That the applicant shall install a standard fire service to parcel 1, including a water meter, utility box, and shut-off valve, wall valve conforming to city standards B3-3 or B8. The applicant shall install public utility services to each lot, including but not limited to underground electrical, telephone, cable TV, and gas. The applicant obtain an encroachment permit from the City of San Juan Bautista for all work within the public right-of-way of Monterey Street. The applicant shall obtain a demolition permit for the removal of the existing masonry block structure and wood garage. The applicant shall pay all fees required by the city and San Juan Aromas School District, including CEQA compliance fees. The applicant shall install water-efficient plumbing fixtures, lighting fixtures, irrigation facilities, and use only drought-resistant landscaping on the front setback of each parcel upon issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall construct a new home on each parcel that will conform substantially to the neighborhood in architecture, size, scale, and massing. Passed and adopted by the Commission. If we get a motion to approve the conditions of approval for the PUD.
I'll make a motion of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista hereby approves planned unit development permit number 2014-601 with the following conditions and recommends to the City Council of the same of the 11 conditions here.
Do we have a second? Oh,
Second that.
we have a roll call vote.
Yes, Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 4-1 with Commissioner Yver voting or absent.
And just to reiterate, you're recommending to the City Council. The City Council will then hold a public hearing and then issue the PUD permit by municipal code.
Okay. Now, next item. 5B, consider amendments to Section 11, signs of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code. The sign code sets standards for all aspects of signs in the city, and the Commission will consider a complete review of Section 11. And this is a continued public hearing. Staff.
Matt, do you want to take it?
Well, good evening, Commissioners. I know this has been in front of you for quite some time, and that we've been able to kind of go through the code and have special...
Everyone hear you?
Can you hear me? Yep. And I know this commission has held several special meetings just to focus in on this specific item. One of the things that we were looking to have with this revision of the code was the design guidelines for the signs, well, for the sign design guidelines in our design guidelines for San Juan Bautista, updated to reflect what was in the code revisions that is in front of the Planning Commission this evening. I guess we were looking from you to see if there was anything else that needed to be added to both the sign code or the design guidelines.
And I think that the sign code, with all of the hearings that we've had for the last 2 years, and developing the criteria, I think we're comfortable to approve that. But what was held up is that we wanted to make sure that the citywide sign guidelines was consistent, so that would be supportive to your ordinance that you're going to recommend to the city council. And I know each one of you has spent a lot of time on this matter, as well as citizens in the audience here that have participated over the years. And I think it's a well thought out ordinance, and once it gets there, then we can start enforcing some of the sign regulations.
Okay, this is one of those items where you have the people who are going to be regulated got involved with the regulations to make it work and to improve the quality of life in San Juan Bautista. I know the commission had several extra meetings to accommodate business people so they could come in before the shops were open. And again, that's something you don't see in too many commissions. They say, don't make it at 7 o'clock at night, that's too bad. Well, this is San Juan Bautista. We tried to get you there at 9:30 in the morning. Okay, is there any comments from the public on the sign code before we go into it?
I have a speaker card from Caravan.
Okay, Ms. Vonk?
Thank you, members of the commission. I just had a question about one particular type of sign, and I didn't have a chance to review your final draft, but it's the one dealing with internally illuminated signs. In the past, these have been banned as not being consistent with the historic character of San Juan Bautista, because we do encourage the kind of handcrafted type of sign. And I know I believe that you were allowing at least one in one of your iterations of this proposed ordinance or the design guidelines. And the internally illuminated signs are extremely commercial looking. They're the ones that you find on McDonald's, Subway, you name it, AT&T. It consists of a box, usually, and it can be in the shape of a letter. It has a fluorescent tube inside, and then it's covered with some kind of plastic or glass, usually plastic probably, with the logo on it. And I'm just very concerned if we are allowing this type of sign in the city, because it's really going to change the look of our historic downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Where did we leave that one?
Does the public have a copy of the design guidelines?
That's not up yet.
No, not up yet?
That's not up yet. It's strictly the ordinance.
Okay.
And just to frame it in the proper context, over the last year and a half, we've seen a number of little entrepreneurs and business owners put in the internal illuminated signs in their windows that says open, open. And I think this is what we felt was allowable in this signing ordinance, is one of those signs that was not overpowering, but yet consistent in size, that we've designated, that would allow you to advertise that you are open for business.
I think that's, what you're talking about is like a pole sign of the big McDonald's or a Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. Those are the external, the exterior. And here they were talking about signs inside, I think inside the building.
Well, that's not clear to me. The open signs, they are just the little bulbs, or what is it called?
Ovals.
LEDs?
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the box,
Yeah.
like the
Prohibited.
The school put up a big internally illuminated sign at our gateway.
1110
Okay.
100.
We have no control over the school district.
Right.
But,
Section D.
these are the big, they're it's a box with a fluorescent tube inside, and then it's covered with a big piece of plastic that
Okay.
says McDonald's
Prohibited.
or Subway or,
Okay.
you know.
Section 1110-100 under prohibited signs, internally illuminated signs.
Item B.
I'm sorry.
Item B.
Item B. Oh, do you have your copy?
No, I don't have a copy.
Okay, I'll read it. Internally illuminated signs, parentheses, with the exception of signs included in 11.10.020, end parentheses, neon signs, fluorescent or fluorescent colors, flashing signs, and LED, parentheses, light emitting diode signs, diode, parentheses, signs. So you're not going to see one of those outside in front of a building or on a post, on a pole or something.
It's a prohibited sign.
What's the exception?
I think
it's-
Roger just explained that
110,
just moments
02.
ago.
The exceptions would be an internal illuminated sign inside the window.
Where
Not
did you find
not to
that
exceed, I think it was, what,
page?
12 inches.
12 inches inside, yeah.
Okay, businesses illuminate, okay, this is on page 4, section K, illuminated window sign. Businesses shall be allowed one lighted sign, parentheses, during business hours, end parentheses, of their choice without a permit and as noted below, colon. 1, a lighted sign can be placed inside the business building. Inside shall be defined as within 12 inches of the actual window glass or exterior wall opening visible from the outside, end parentheses, but may not exceed a maximum of 216 square inches.
Okay.
So all these
they're-
people have open and whatever weird formation,
Okay.
or if they want to have something else, they're allowed that with 216 square inches
Within the building, within
inside.
12 inches
of the glass, yeah.
window.
And
But
the other-
not on the front.
The other kind are
Outside.
prohibited, yeah.
Okay.
And like
thank
you said,
That
I'm with you.
clarifies it.
I don't like the school sign, but
Okay.
they,
Thank you very much for
march to a different
explaining
drummer.
it. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
okay, any other comments? This is good. Any last minute comments? Because this is going to go to the city council. They'll have to have they'll have to publish it also. So it probably won't be until July meeting or June meeting? No, July meeting.
To be passed.
Because you only got 2 weeks now. So it'll come up in July. So I'd like them to say, thank you, did a good job, let's go to the next job. Because we have some heavy-duty stuff coming up with the general plan and other annexations and things. Okay, commissioners, what else we've got here that you'd like to talk about? Nothing.
We've talked
Yep.
ourselves to death
Oh,
about this one.
You know, commissioners don't have much left to say. I think we've said it all. And that's why we want to give the public a chance to get any last items. Okay, now, do we have to deal with the CEQA here? No, the resolution doesn't cover it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, yeah. You can make a recommendation to the city council, but they would have to comply with the CEQA.
They'll have to go through it.
Yeah.
Well, as I see it with CEQA here, you have this is going to enhance the city. It's not going to have any effects on wildlife, birds, Native American, underground stuff. This is strictly visual. It's been done for a long time. And I know there's got to be an exemption in there someplace because there's no chance that this could have an environmental impact. It may have other impacts. It's going to have an economic impact, we hope. More business, better signs, bringing more customers, that's more business. That's an impact, positive economic. What should we do here? We can generally make that finding. Let staff come up with the details and run it to council, because we don't have the final say here. This is the council.
Right, so recommend that we want to make a motion to have the city council review our draft?
No,
For
they're
approval?
approve it. No,
Yeah.
it's adopt. This is an
Or
adoption.
adopt,
Yeah. Okay, and then staff can give them the CEQA problems.
right.
Okay, I'm with that. Okay, the Planning Commission has reviewed the sign ordinance and found it to be too restrictive and not friendly to city business. And whereas the Planning Commission feels the sign code should be restrictive only when addressing issues of public health and safety. And whereas the Planning Commission held hearings on November 5, 2013, January 23rd, 2014, February 4th, 2014, where public input was received about the sign ordinance, and whereas a notice of the public hearings was published in accordance with applicable law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista that it recommends to the City Council the amendments to Chapter 11.10 set out in the draft ordinance sent herewith to Council. It's passed and adopted by the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista on the 6th of May 2014 by the following vote. We'll have a roll call vote on this one.
If we get a motion.
If we get a motion.
So,
We're recommending amendments to the existing sign code, even though we completely redid it.
Well, let's say it as you want to.
we're amending it.
We're amending the code, we're amending the municipal code.
We're amending the municipal
Chapter
code.
11, Chapter 11, Chapter
Okay.
1110 of the municipal code with a revised sign ordinance.
Under the direction of City Council to do this.
That's right. It's their fault we got into this.
So, should we say municipal code in the title of this?
It says San Juan Bautista Municipal Code in the title.
It does?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right here,
Yeah, we're
down here
good.
at the bottom. Okay, even though that's...
Okay.
All right.
And just to let you know, there is one provision under the categorical exemption of the CEQA that says enforcement actions by regulatory agencies, and that's under section 15321.
This is an enforcement
The
action.
So
municipal code.
it,
So that everyone here understands what we're doing, including me.
Good. Okay. Do I have a motion?
And I would like to make the motion because I've been at this all my life.
Okay.
It seems-
We'll accept your motion.
Do we have a number for this 2014-09?
Yes, 09.
09 or... Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Resolution 2014, 2014, number 09, which says, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recommending amendments to the Chapter 11.10 of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
He's a long time resident also.
Thank you.
We'll have a roll call vote if you got one.
Commissioner Galarte,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaris,
Aye.
Commissioner Franco.
Here.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1 with Commissioner Guerrero absent.
She missed out.
Yeah.
And she was the chairman of that committee, because when we met as a committee of the whole to work this thing out, so we could get just one item on the agenda, she was chairman because she had been chairman before. She got it as chairman, and then I became chairman, but I felt it was an honor to carry that out, and we gave it to her. I'm sorry she's not here tonight.
Her work is
No, I'll
just
talk about it.
tremendous. She did all the editing, computer-wise, just... thank
Mr.
you.
Gilbrand, you had a comment. Maybe we should do that. We'll go around the block here. You know, this has been over 2 years, and again, the council, I guess, under previous administration, what was sent up to them was not acceptable even to them. They sent it to us, and we made it acceptable. So now I just hope they adopt it, and I just hope that everybody in the city works with it to make it happen and to have our city looking really good. You know, one item at a time. Thank you. Okay, the next item on this agenda had to do with consider the amendments to Section 7, signs, of the San Juan Bautista Design Guidelines, making the guidelines more user-friendly. The issue here is that you have guidelines and an ordinance. We made some changes to the ordinance that now put the guidelines out of date, so you're going to have somebody going up to Mr. Grimley saying, well, it says here, but he's going to say, but it's the council adopted this, but it still says here. We wanted to clean that up, and so working with staff and I guess the students, and I'll tell you more about it, we brought that into compliance. Staff.
Okay, so just to expand a little bit more, the students that we were working with on the general plan, there were 7 students, 2 are here in the audience this evening who will be presenting on their items specifically, but there was a student that was one of the things that she wanted to do was to update our design guidelines, and it just so happened to be perfect timing when the Planning Commission wanted to update the sign part of that design guidelines. As part of that update, it seemed to make sense to come up with design guidelines that would be a little bit easier to read, a little bit more user-friendly, showing some pictures. The pictures that are included in this document that's in front of you this evening were put together by one of the local merchants, Larry Gerbrandt, who also has a Rare Light Gallery, and so he went out with me and we shot some of these local examples of good-looking signs in San Juan Bautista, so we wanted to update that portion of the design guidelines as well. But just functionality-wise, when people do come in to get a sign permit, some people are visual, some people like to read, and so these guidelines that are in front of you tonight, they have kind of both. And they also give a few diagrams of showing, the height above the sidewalk, just so people can visually see what those requirements are, reflecting the sign code. I know we've been churning this out at a lot quicker pace, given that we've been working with the student. We've made a lot of the edits that we discussed in the special meetings that we've held in regards to the design guidelines for the signs. Tonight, if we'd like to go over it, we can make any more additions if we feel necessary.
I have a couple.
Sure.
Can I borrow your copy?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
This is,
On page 3, the third line,
if that's the same draft.
let's see. The word generally. Oh, okay. Pole signs and roof signs are generally discouraged and should only be used when the character of the area. Okay, I'm sorry, you got that. Generally discouraged. Okay, pole signs and roof signs are generally discouraged. Should be used in one. Okay, let that one go. On page 8, I like line numbers. The 5th dot. Lines that be integrated to the awning's fabric. No board signs attached to the awning will be allowed. Is this the one that's online right now?
I don't remember where I got that copy.
Okay, so
You probably
it's,
got the old copy.
What do you have?
I have the old copy.
Anybody have
Before, I didn't get a copy of this one.
Yeah, I think what
Okay,
Bernie
on
is
the-
talking about is
the
that
fifth-
very same thing. A directional sign should be located in a location that is logical and easy to find. And I think we talked about logical and visible to find. Because easy and visible, the sign is supposed to be visible, not easy. It's supposed to be
Okay.
visible to find.
see. Okay, on page 8, okay, I can't use that then. Page 8, the 8th dot, capitalized dark sky ordinance. That's a,
Oh, it's because it's not the same pages as you had
Yeah.
for that.
on page 10, on your 3rd dot, use the term must maintain a minimum clearance of 7.5 feet. That way they can do anything above it. Page 12, on the last dot, it's either an incomplete sentence or it's missing a period. What's your recommendation on that one? No, you're not going to make it on
I'm
this.
not going to be able to understand what you're saying.
We'll have to get,
Yeah, because there's no period at the end of a different one.
we got to get the CETA to get us some computers here. Take notes.
Now, there is an additional time to, you review it one more time, because the ordinance goes to the city council.
In July.
They set it and advertise it, and then it's the first reading, introduction, then the next city council meeting, it's the adoption, and then it becomes effective 30 days after that. So that whole process takes about 45 to 60 days. And so this is going to go to the city council for their July meeting. And then it'll probably be approved 60 days thereafter. So you do have some time that if you feel that you want to, fine tune this,
Well, I've got just two more. On page 14, the last dot, A-frame signs, why don't you make that on private property? So there's
On
no
private
question.
property?
There's no question that we're talking about public right-of-way signs. And on page 15, the last dot, the one that starts off with billboards and advertising structures. If you want, don't start it with parentheses. Put the parentheses on the second term. If you want to use billboards,
Last dot?
you can use that other one as a definition.
Freestanding outdoor advertising signs.
Yeah.
So we are not going to be able to accept this tonight
Well, just minor, unless you got other changes. I just had,
because I couldn't follow with the draft I had, and we weren't provided with the draft, so I
well,
don't
they
exactly
emailed
know
it to
where we are.
us.
Yeah, I know the revisions that the student were making. I got that draft this weekend, and so I pretty much fired it off immediately once I got it. But
That's how you spent your weekend?
and then it's not all ideal, huh?
That's how you spent your weekend?
Yeah.
Been there. Now, you're a professional planner. See, that's the difference between professionals and others.
But then also, ideally, we do have a commissioner missing out this evening, and we'd like to get her input on the draft as well. So, I'm with Roger that continuing this item would be good to allow us some more time to make sure that it's tidied up and
Okay, so it'd be good for staff, too.
yeah.
Okay, based on that, I'll call for a motion to continue to the July meeting, but this also gives us one more look, and it doesn't interfere with the council. Because this isn't going to take two public hearings. They'll be able to do this at their second public hearing when they have the second hearing. But we can clean it up in July and just send it to them, and they can do what they want with it.
And so is this draft available to the public?
It's
Not the
online.
latest draft, but it can be.
It can be, it should be.
Oh, it isn't online?
Because I read it online and I saw what you were talking about, but I couldn't follow it on the document because I didn't have time or energy to download it.
The
So
latest version?
the latest version, the one that says billboards in parentheses at the beginning of the sentence, I do have read that.
You sent it out on the 9th? When they
Yeah, I sent an email.
Yeah.
It's not on our website now.
Oh, okay.
But it's not available to the general public at this time.
No. Those that have been at the meetings and have requested, we've sent it out. But yeah, we haven't had posted it online because we've been revising it so much. We can get it out online.
Well, I think it's ready for public review.
Gee, the stuff I gave you was minor.
Yeah, I mean,
So
overall,
we're
it
not
really looks
talking-
good.
We're not talking major theories here. We're talking just,
Yeah.
did you spell my name right type thing. Okay, so I'll call for a motion for continuance to the July meeting, to the regular July meeting.
You're making the motion?
No, I'm calling for a motion.
I'll make the motion that we continue the review of the design guideline, sign guideline, until the next meeting, planning commission meeting.
Is there a second to the motion?
The reason I'm not seconding that is that I'm wondering if at a special meeting, we could take action to clear this up and actually send it right along to council in July. Is that
Oh, you want,
possible?
I don't want to have a special
You
meeting.
don't want to have a
No.
special meeting?
There's not that much in there to do.
I know, but that is my point, that if we did a special meeting and actually did what we're talking about tonight and take action, then it could go right along with the Chapter 11 to City Council at the same time.
See, they meet 2 weeks after we do. We meet early, we meet the first week of July, and they meet the third week of July. So at our meeting, if we approve it,
And
It goes to the
would
clerk.
It would
go
still
right
be
to them
available.
anyway.
it would go anyway.
Okay,
So
all right.
basically, we got a free meeting to
45
talk about it.
60 days.
So despite the fact that I had discussion before my second, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Favor? Oh, do we need a motion? Do you need a roll call on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Opposed? None. Okay, well, it's unanimous. And if it becomes legal, just say it's consensus.
So staff is going to get it ready.
Yeah, and if you have any other comments, after you look this thing over, just call them in to staff, and when we see it again, there should be nothing left to talk about. We've done all the talking. There's not much left to say. Okay, let's go back to this agenda here. We have a fourth item, a urban growth boundary. Consider an extension of the city's urban growth boundary to the Rancho Vista project, the Christopher Ranch, to show the city's ability to provide urban services together with a plan of service. This encompasses a 28-acre parcel north of the Creek Bridge subdivision and west of San Juan Highway, 1st Street, and is within the corporate limits of the city. Staff, that's a mouthful for me.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Not Mr. Mayor, but Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. The current urban growth boundary was established back in 1998 with the general plan, and it includes the existing city limits as well as areas within the specific plan, more specifically the south area shown on your 2.5 figure of the general plan, and the map was attached to you. The urban growth boundary was a parcel-specific boundary map that marked the limits of where the urban growth development may occur during the life of the general plan. With the new general plan being formulated, the urban growth boundary line should be evaluated to address where growth should occur over the next 20 years. Most important, the urban growth boundary line should reflect a pattern of contiguous outward growth based upon our infrastructures and urban services. The planning staff has prepared a map showing the area which would include in the revised urban growth boundary. The revised area focuses on the business park at the old cement plant site and the hillside area directly south of the city limits. By including these areas into the urban growth boundary, it provides the city with the ability to annex the property in the future and into the city adopt a hillside development ordinance to control the development on the ridge line. That's very important because many of the hillside areas are marginally developable with landslide areas. Expansion to the south is a logical extension of the city based upon our well locations and our gateway to the Fremont Peaks State Park. Expansion to the north city limits is another logical extension of our development strategy. The present site north of the city is within the city limits boundary, and it does not require annexation as does the south area. The south area, many of the areas are non-contiguous and will require contiguous parcels adjacent to the city before it can reach the business park and the cement site. So the orderly outward mobility of our urban growth boundaries is the foundation of how you should review your current urban growth boundaries. Now, Matt has prepared his staff report that addresses specifically the area to the north.
Thank you, Roger. So specifically looking to the north, as Roger said, this parcel that we were looking at is in the city. So as well, when we're looking at that, we're looking if we can provide service for that area, and what the area would be looking to be was possible housing, so we would be going through to see what those impacts could be. And so we look at what the services, can the service be provided for that property there, looking at water, sewer, fire, police, school, recreation, and so forth. And so when we're going through to see if we can provide that service, that's when we can move that boundary out to include that property. Yeah, the report that was sent out to you kind of details all that information, shows where the site's located and so forth.
Okay.
One of the other important features is that as the city grows, it should grow outward and contiguous. And we look at what available land and infill that we have currently designated for R1. There are only 2 properties left within the city that are zoned R1 that have the capabilities of being developed. Each one of those have constraints. The Johnson parcel, 4.95 acres, at the end of Lang Street, has some constraints because it accesses off a substandard street, and it will require a little bit more design, I'm going to say imaginary design features to get access to that property so that it could be developed. The other residential property that's there is off Lawston Drive going up to our reservoir, and that's about a 3.5 to 4 acres. The vast majority of the south end is steep slopes with landslides. There is a flat area there right off of Lawston Drive, and that's available for development. Those are the 2 existing infill that are available. We looked at it collectively that when you have just that small area of developable R1 land, it puts a constraint on the marketability of future lands, and we felt that the north end would be a logical extension. And later on tonight, I will be giving you a report on our annexation policies and our projected annexation of lands in and around the city that we're using because recently we have our tax sharing agreement complete with the county, and it gives us the green light to start annexing property.
Very good. Okay, let's see, is this a designated public hearing? Okay.
But
So,
it only covers this issue, not the first report that he gave.
yeah.
Okay.
What we should do here, I guess, what do we got here?
This was not advertised. This
Okay,
was.
Everybody has a resolution. Staff everything. I'm just going to hand them out and make sure that we have it.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we've had our staff report, and I guess we should take our public comments. I know that several communications have been received electronically. Trish. Okay, we've had several electronic communications that just carry the same weight as anybody who would be sending any letter or speaking here. Do you have a list of those people who, or I can give it to you. You've got one from Darlene
Anger.
Auger?
Anger.
Oh, A-N, Anger, okay. And 2 from Marta Gorlick, 1 from Alex Gorlick, 1 from Olga Arkhipova, 1 from Michael Ostrovsky, 1 from Irvin Fegley, and 1 from Karavank. Couple of them are lengthy. But I think.
Copies of these are out there, by the way.
Oh, copies are available? Okay, I'm sorry, because I was going to have them read, but if they're available in hard copy, that saves us a lot of problems here. Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that These communications came in and are part of the permanent record. Okay, now we'll take public comments in the order that you've received them.
Carl Vaughn?
Thank you, members of the commission. There apparently was a comment period on this, and the deadline was yesterday at 4 o'clock. I did ask for an extension and received it. Have you had a chance to read the comments between now and your meeting? You have. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's good. Okay.
Those are the job.
All right. I guess my whole premise here is that the proposal to expand our urban growth boundary to the north, this is not in our general plan. It has never been proposed in our general plan. Now, the city says that, we are updating our general plan, and supposedly it says the city, through the general plan update process, has determined that, it should be, that our urban boundary should be moved to the north. Well, our updated general plan has a long way to go. It's got to get community input, it's got to get planning commission input, it's got to get city council input, it's got to get environmental review. There is absolutely no guarantee that the updated general plan is going to include moving the urban growth boundary to the north. So our current general plan is still in existence. And I agree with Mr. Grimsby, the south of Highway 156, and it also talks about east of the Canyon Road. That is the area from day one that has been designated as the area that is designated for expansion. That's where we're going to grow. Our current general plan also highlights the importance of our urban growth boundary. And this is goal L1, the very first goal under our land use element, which is to maintain San Bautista as a small, compact town surrounded by open space and agriculture. Yes, that parcel is in our city limits, and it's zoned agriculture because we want to be surrounded by agriculture and open space. It's our prerogative to zone that as agriculture because that is what people who have worked on this general plan in the past, and it's been in our general plan for quite some time, that's what they determined. Policy L1, maintain an urban growth boundary that delineates the ultimate limits of urban development around San Juan Bautista. And then it says from 1998 to 2015 because this general plan expires in sometime, I think at the end of 2015. The city should not extend urban services such as water and sewer lines beyond this boundary. The urban growth boundary, is intended to establish a frame of agricultural land around the city. Urban development in the planning area will only be allowed if it falls within the urban growth boundary. Back then, the general plan envisioned a total population of 3,000 people by the year 2015. Well, we fall far short of that. I think the last census said we had about 1,800, if I'm correct on that. And back then, with the population of 3,000 projected, it states that there is sufficient land within the urban growth boundary to accommodate this population. And it identified this development reserve, which is south of 156, east of the Canyon Road, and it also recommended that a specific plan be developed for that area. And you may recall that one of our earlier city managers started that process. We hired a consultant to start developing a specific plan for that area. I don't know what happened. It kind of fizzled. I think we probably ran out of money to complete that process. But there has never been any talk about this suburban sprawl into this beautiful pasture land that's zoned agriculture. This is urban sprawl. Can you imagine 28.3 acres? I mean, how many houses can you put on something like that? And the general plan goes on. It recommends that we have a 3% growth rate per year. It's a recommendation. We had an ordinance that apparently was held invalid for even less than that. And it also recommends that projects be limited to 20 units, that they be phased, so that we have small developments, not these big suburban sprawling projects. It contemplates agricultural lands to the north of the city, which I've already mentioned. Let's see, what other comments can I make here? The community design element reiterates the same thing. Keep surrounding agricultural lands, keep development small scale rather than large subdivisions, encourage development in the area south of San Juan Hollister Road. The adopted historic plan, same spiel, everything that I've just said. Again, it says develop land south of San Juan Hollister Road. There's no mention of turning these agricultural open space lands into some kind of suburban, wasteland. And who is that going to benefit? There's a lot of development pressure. Silicon Valley, the houses are really expensive. We're going to generate some kind of a commuter, environment here. And here's the other point. We can't even provide potable water for our own current residents. We've got one functioning well. The nitrates are higher than what they're supposed to be. We're supposed to be, people with infants and pregnant women are supposed to be boiling their water. This water issue has been going on for years. We still haven't been able to solve it. And so now we're going to bring in, many more people and have to service them. This is ridiculous. We can't even service ourselves. We can't enforce our own ordinances. We've got limited sheriff, coverage. The hydrants are historic. How can we do something like this? We need to bring our own house in order before we can do something like this. Okay, the city needs money, and it seems like any project that's thrown at us now, it sticks, because supposedly it's going to generate money. Well, I think the minimal revenue that the city gets from new property taxes, and I understand it's a small percentage of what people pay. Once the developer sells and leaves with the profits, the city is going to be left with all these new residents. And again, as I say, we have so many issues right now. Even our roads are in terrible condition, many of them. This is just a thoughtless proposal. It's bad planning, and it does not comply with our general plan. Our general plan that we all have said is such a great plan. It was really well thought out. We've been able to operate under it very well. So no problem annexing those southern properties and bringing it in. That was all part of the plan. But bringing in this agricultural zone in the north is just a terrible mistake. And I urge you to nix it. Thank you.
Thank you. The 3-minute rule I let go because I felt that her comments were contained, did not repetitive, and there was information that the public wanted to hear.
And we received her letter, and she followed it exactly, too.
Good. Okay.
Roberta Bain.
Hello, Chairman. As a property
Your name?
owner, Roberta Bain, as a property owner, I am concerned with this major development. My main concern, of course, is the water. After Channel 8 had a special on San Juan water as being toxic, I'm also speaking for friends of mine, Nico and Barbara Garcia, owners of 105 the Alameda. The house was in escrow, and after that special came out, the potential owner came over here, I understand came over here, and asked if there was an emergency water plan No one could answer the question, so they decided to back up and not purchase the property. So my main concern is, what are we going to do with the water? Is there an emergency water plan? And I don't know, it just seems like this development is at the wrong time. Maybe years ago it would have lived, but right now with the drought, I think a lot of people are concerned about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marta Gorlick.
Hello, I'm Marta Gorelick. I sent you 2 long letters already. I'm not going to repeat them. I just wanted to put my face to them. I do live in the Creek Bridge houses, and so you might think that I'm being very self-serving in my comments of not wanting this new land to develop. But I agree very much with the first speaker with the concerns about it, particularly just the vast number of housing that would be going in there. And I talked to you a lot about green development, and the city's talked about wanting green development. And what I've seen of this doesn't have any real greenness about it, but I would really urge you, as the hardworking planning commission that you are, to take a lead and a stand on being a very, very green town by the way you develop or not develop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan DeVries.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, Dan DeVries, 405 5th Street. Thank you, Cara, for describing the 1998 general plan. I brought my copy with me. It's a document that I and others worked very, very hard on in the 90s. I was chairman of this commission for 12 years. And I sat on it for 14. I'm now on the County Planning Commission and a service chair, and I've been on the county for 9 years. So I know a little bit about this general plan, which is the operative document in this city right now. And the first question is one that just is more of a common sense, I think, for you all, and that is, why are you even considering doing anything with the urban growth boundary ahead of what is already a general plan update process or a new general plan? When we did this document in 1998, it was myself, a guy named Barry Miller from Oakland. He was the consultant. We didn't have the Cal Poly students. We did the urban growth boundary at the same time as the general plan in those days. And that made a lot of sense, because when you're having conversations like, how big should the city be? Where should things go? How much do we want to grow? How much do we want to stay small? Those are all general plan types of conversations. And then establishing an urban growth boundary flows from the conclusions that you reach in those conversations. And that's exactly what happened. And it's exactly what holds true to this day. I can tell you from a personal experience, and I think I said this in an email to Trish, of all the things that I ever did in 14 years in the San Juan Bautista Planning Commission, establishing that urban growth boundary, I thought was by far the most important, and the thing that I was most proud of for all those years. If you do away with it now, tonight, or prior to a new general plan being adopted by this city, you might as well just open up the whole city for development. There is no other conclusion that you can reach than this. The city will be open for development and urban sprawl. It's called an urban growth boundary, meaning that growth should not take place outside of that boundary. Carr read some of the excerpts from the policies, which are good ones, but and I don't know how often you all look at the general plan, but when it was issued, it says 75% of all of our residents here in town responded to a survey and said that the small town atmosphere was San Juan's best quality. And although there were differences of opinion, there were consensus around a number of topics. First, conservation of the agricultural land and hillsides around San Juan Bautista must be a priority. It's acknowledged that the city cannot sustain significant growth until infrastructure problems, sewer, water, and drainage problems are resolved. And before I forget, is that this notion that housing makes money for a city, studies have shown time and time again that a city or a county loses money on housing at the end of the day. By the time you provide water, sewer, police, fire, schools, cities and counties don't make money on housing. You just don't. It's a net loss to the city. So don't think of housing as income producing or income generating. Some other excerpts from the general plan. Beyond the boundaries of the development reserve, the issue of agricultural preservation cannot be emphasized enough. Loss of the San Juan Valley, and this is the area in question, is a part of the San Juan Valley, stretching then to the east. Loss of the San Juan Valley to suburban sprawl would not only diminish the county's agricultural income, it would change the character of San Juan Bautista forever. Building a subdivision of this type would change the character of this town forever. I did the Creek Bridge development. I spent a lot of time on that, and that was kind of a big deal then. 30, 40 houses. We worked like crazy to make sure that it fit within the city. This isn't Creek Bridge. This isn't adding on a few streets to the city. This is something that's altogether different, that is on Prime Ave, and would then spur other development in other areas once you do away with the urban growth boundary. Big housing developments, big development in general, inconsistent with this town's character. And as regards the urban growth boundary in particular, the urban growth boundary is a parcel-specific boundary, as the city manager pointed out, that marks the limit of where urban development may occur. And its intent is to reduce urban sprawl and preserve a permanent area of agricultural and open space around the city. That was the intent. That's why it's so important. Anything having to do with the south side, the other side of the highway, as we call it, south of 156, that has nothing to do with this conversation. That, as somebody, I think Cara said, that always has been the idea, is to grow in that direction. And that's why it's within the 1998 urban growth boundary. The city manager said you have a map that's attached. If you don't, look on that one right there. The urban growth boundary already encompasses that area, including the ideal cement plant. And urban growth boundaries don't have anything to do with annexation either. Annexation is based upon sphere of influence, which is providing services, which is water and sewer. That's what LAFCO would look to. Not what the city of San Juan Bautista says is the limit beyond which we don't want to grow. Lastly, and then I'll conclude, the notion that there's no space within the urban growth boundary to develop. The general plan is very specific that there are 172 acres within the urban growth boundary designated for residential use, including 85 acres of vacant land. I won't read the whole paragraph, but you'll see that the analysis that's done concludes, proves numerically with statistics and where these properties are located, that the residential area already within the existing urban growth boundary provides ample opportunity for residential development. The general plan goes on and on to say that that's what San Juan should be about. Let's develop from the inside out. Before you do away with the urban growth boundary to wipe away the Christopher Ranch, what can be developed within the urban growth boundary? If you do away with it, there's nothing that's going to save this town. There's nothing that's going to save it from becoming Gilroy, Salinas, anywhere else. So I would really, really encourage you to take that item very, very carefully. And if you thought, boy, this is a weighty decision, if anything that I've said has made any sense to you, at the very least, defer it to a bigger conversation, which is the adoption of a new general plan. If you want to change the urban growth boundary, do it at that time, not on a case-by-case, development-by-development basis. That's just a bad way to do things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it? Oh, here comes one.
Mariana Tomas?
Mariana Thomas. I'm speaking for myself. I live on 45 Monterey Street, and I've been here now almost 10 years. And I chose this community because to retire after teaching many years Russian at Defense Language Institute. And I realized last week as I was talking to my neighbors on Monterey Street about the extension of the urban growth boundary, that they chose this community for the same reason, that they wanted to be in a small town that is surrounded by these beautiful hills, and they wanted to preserve them and the agricultural land. So I am speaking both for myself against this extension of the boundary and for them because they were not able to be here because one neighbor broke her arm, etc. But I think it also would be good to consider that maybe you need the approval, 2/3 of a vote of the entire population, not just the new general plan, if you want to do something like this, but to really see that the community is aware of what is going on, and so take a vote on it. This is, to me, also a very serious issue. So I'm definitely dittoing what other people have said, because I want to go on record for me and for my two neighbors.
Thank you.
Chris? Nora?
Good evening. I'm Chris Martirena. I'm at 97 4th Street. And I had a couple of comments as well. We've heard some important comments and some important concerns that community members have. I would question some of the comments that were made referring to that land as prime ag land. I would question, I've never seen any use for anything on the land other than grass. I think that some of the benefits include having a single-family owner-occupied housing development. We have a very high percentage of rental occupancy, and that has issues associated with it, as the Benito Link survey that's out there describes. And I think that the description of what you have before you is very much consistent with feedback from the community. Multiple general plan meetings were conducted in the community. If there's anything inconsistent with this proposal as compared to the feedback that came from the community on that general plan update. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more last-minute cards? Speakers? Wait, we got one. I mean, this is part of the democratic process. Everybody gets a chance to speak for and against, and then somebody has to bounce things around. Okay, your name, sir?
Doug Brothers, 7 Awani Street, Creek Ridge. Been to the city council a few times here and talked a few times about development in our kind of neighborhood over there. Even though I came in as obviously out the Creek Ridge development, which I felt was one of the biggest developments the city has seen for 10, 20 years. I came from a ranch, that grew flowers and moved over here from the Watsonville area just to be in this small town. I paid extra for my 7 Awani Street parcel to have that urban look behind my backyard. And I also feel, like many people have said here tonight, that there's plenty of development available in the south boundary. And I apologize, I got a cold, so I'm kind of mumbling a lot here. But there's also the development across 156 that started up, 20 years ago or 15 years ago. That probably has less than half the houses that could actually be in that development. I think there's another way to look at growth, which is you have a community that has less than half the homes in it that can continue to grow. Maybe it's not part of the city plan, but it's a development that is sitting over there with kind of a half a development look to it. At the same time, you have the south properties, like everyone has mentioned here. There's so much potential going over the stoplight there by the 156 highway. To look at that as the possible growth for the city, because you're impacting the north end here so much already. We already know there's bottlenecks going by the development on 3rd Street and you're just going to impact it even more. And when that other development, if it ever goes in or does go in, is going to create a lot of traffic and issues in that area. So we see that where they're going to sprawl into our neighborhoods, which again, we're all here for the small town of San Juan. We're not here for urban growth. You can go to many cities around us for urban growth. And we're here for the beautiful city and the fact that we can walk our neighborhoods and enjoy the view of the agriculture and walking around and feel safe, and that's important, I think, to all of us. So I think if you look at everybody and pulse the community, you're going to find that everybody loves this town. We move here for the small town, not for the urban development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie Village?
30 years ago, I came here because I lived in Los Gatos. Talk about urban sprawl. I came here because I felt that this town would probably remain this size, that we have clean air, we can look up at the sky and count stars. Where else can you do that around here? Even at the beach, you can't even do that. Having a development the size that Christopher Ranch wishes they could do is something that I think needs to go to the general population for a vote, okay? I really do. I don't know what is going on here, but I do know this. A lot of the people that are on the Planning Commission now have always been very, very conservative in terms of growth for this town. I don't know what has happened to change that, but you have to understand that the general population here does not want any further development around San Juan. And if you don't know that, I think you will know after the next election.
Are there any other speakers? Anybody would like to speak? Sir.
Good evening, commissioners and audience members. I am Bob Fulton. I am with the Rancho Vista Project, Christopher Ranch. And I am here tonight because I have been at all the public meetings, the general plan meetings, and listened to people and listened to what is going on and tried to listen as well as I could and talk to as many people as I can on this project for over a year now. And things that have come out were, initially things that came out were, hey, we want housing, but we want our housing to be developed away from the freeways. We don't want it in the flood zones. This is one of the most logical places for your residential growth to expand. The Creek Bridge subdivision, I think, was done extremely well. I think it went through a very long process with the Planning Commission in designing the style, the layout, and everything that happened, and I think the city did a good job on it, a wonderful job. In this last year, one of the things that was apparent from day one is that there are a lot of things that need more money within the town to improve the services and everything that is going on at this time. In this year, you've had a water issue that has taken over most things because there is a critical water issue and no development can go forward without some sort of resolution and solutions to the problem. The town needs good water. One of the things, and I don't know how many of you were here for the informal project presentation that we did with this, and I wish that it were tonight, but that's kind of a separate issue. What I will lay out there is that if you've seen it, you'll notice that everything that has been done is designed to keep housing away from the existing housing in the Creek Bridge area. There is still open space and a lot of room back behind the existing development. The other things that have been designed into it are traffic calming measures, calming down the traffic as it's coming into town, connectivity through the town from 1st Street over to 3rd Street, the issue of connectivity of water and sewer services from 1st Street over to 3rd Street. I don't know if it's appropriate to mention it, but part of our development proposal will to bring in funds that are going to help you with that water issue. You have a major well issue that needs to be corrected and fixed, and we know it needs a lot of money. One of the things we're proposing is being a contributor to that, and it wouldn't be anything. We can't do anything until the water issue is resolved, until things are corrected. This is a project that would be done. One thing that I love about San Juan Bautista is there's nothing cookie cutter about this town. You go through it and everything is unique. And this neighborhood needs to be designed the same way. And I think it needs to be designed as you've done your other neighborhoods through collaboration with the Planning Commission and input from the residents of the town. And that's the process that would go on with this. The style, the San Juan Bautista style is something that should be incorporated into this as this neighborhood is created. And it's the logical place, we believe, for the R1 expansion of the town. The density would be less than, it would be about in the middle of what you allow within your low-density residential area. It gives a chance to incorporate water-saving landscape, all the things that you want to do to grow properly. So with that, I appreciate you giving thought to it and consideration. I appreciate a lot of the input and feedback that I've gotten. I kind of wish I would have gotten more of it in the informal project review, and I've had a chance to speak to a lot of people at the general plan updates and listen to what's going on. So with that, thank you, respectful of your time, and appreciate you considering it. Thank you.
Any other speakers? For or against? Sir.
I'd like to make a quick comment that he mentioned that there was a green belt behind the creek, or the development now. There is not. There's one for the 4 homes on the right side or the north end of the creek bridge, but on the west side or the south side, there's literally 3 houses coming down a bridge. There's no green belt behind our home areas that I've seen on the map. It's not grass out there. Every year they plant it out and they just harvested it now. At a birthday party, I caught this allergy because of the birthday party with all the dust coming off of all the alfalfa hay and everything out there, and went right into our birthday party. So on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. So I love that. I don't mind my cold because of that, but at the same time, they do harvest the hay out of there and everything to feed their cows. It's not just grass.
Thank you. Okay, now, last call. Is there any other speakers? Okay, we're going to move this now to the commissioners. Commissioners, comments?
My only comment is the city of San Juan's got 3 wells. 2 of them are contaminated. To put a well down now, it costs $1,500,000, plus you got to run the water in the town. City of 1,800 people can't afford this. Sewer plant is in trouble. The state's after us all the time. You're talking $50 million if we have to redo that sewer plant. So we're in a lot of trouble here.
Am I up?
Are you saying the development is going to help you with that, or are you saying that?
I would say it would help a little bit, but it's not going to pay for all of it. Because we're in trouble right now with an $11 million project we put in. I never could finish it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could kind of respond to a couple of the issues here, particularly I think there was an indication that tonight we were going to abandon the urban growth boundaries, and we were not. That's not our intention. This is put on to expand the urban growth boundary. And I'll go back to 2 years ago when we brought forth a 38-acre parcel consisting of 4 parcels south of the San Juan Hollister Road that wanted to earmark an industrial business agricultural park. And we expanded the urban growth boundaries to allow the annexation of that property into the city. Okay. The other indication is that there is adequate land for R1 development south of the city that's inside the urban growth. And that might be true technically, but it is not feasibly for a simple reason that a triangular piece that was owned by the California Railroad Company and now is owned by the Audubon family is the only contact that's contiguous to the city. And that would have to be annexed before any residential property south of the San Juan Hollister Road could be annexed and developed, including the cement plant and all of the others that are inside that current urban growth boundaries. So that current growth boundary is a misnomer because it's tied up to one parcel. One parcel. And if that doesn't annex, then the rest is history. I've indicated on my presentation that there's only 2 parcels that's inside the city limits now that are available for R1 development. And that is absolutely correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
Mr. Grimsley has just brought up a point that I was not thinking about. I own that triangular piece, and so I will have to recuse myself from this. It is in escrow. The escrow has not closed, so I will have to recuse myself from this discussion. It is the size of this. It's not the size of this room, however.
Yes,
Are you
exactly.
talking about expanding the growth boundary to the north?
Yes.
We're not talking about the south.
No. No, what I'm saying is...
Since he brought it up, I don't know what to do.
No, my inference is that we've adjusted the boundary on the south to accommodate agricultural business. And tonight we were talking about expanding the urban growth to include the Christopher Ranch, as well as our recommendation is to expand areas to the south to preserve that hillside area. As long as it remains in the county, we do not have control. I would recommend that you expand that to include the 62 acres of the old Nyland property that's currently owned by the Ishak, so that we can get it into the city and we can control hillside development. We have a hillside ordinance that we have drafted, and it's ready to be presented to the city council. The planning commission, as well as the city council. This gives us the necessary control on those ridge lines and unstable soil. And that's where I'm going with that.
But that's not relevant to what's before you tonight.
Yeah. No, I think it's relevant to the point is that we're asking the commission to consider expanding the urban growth boundaries, not only to the south, but to the north. And it's logical because it's adjacent to and contiguous.
Please have any comment? I don't understand.
Commissioner?
I've heard a lot here tonight, and it's hard to digest all of this in just this one moment for all of you to hear.
If I
But
recuse myself, I have to.
the Creek Bridge project went in, and I was not an advocate of that project. I live across the street from that. I did not want those homes to go in there. And I thank God that you all did go and moved in here, because I couldn't have a better neighborhood. So even though I was against it and fought against it, we still got the neighborhood, and I'm glad that nobody listened to me. In that regard, I'm trying to listen to everybody here, but if I did that, gee, I feel like maybe I should move out so somebody else can move in. We're talking about sensible growth here, and I'm all for that. And I'm going to continue to support that and speak for the people who are not even here as well. And that's where I go. And this project here, I feel I'm in favor of it at this point in time, just to let you know. So if you have any more concerns, come and see me if you'd like. But that's my personal feelings at this point in time. I do want sensible growth. I want something that goes in there that's right for San Juan Bautista. I don't know if this is perfectly right for San Juan Bautista, but it's a good shot in the arm that we need when it comes to economical growth, to stimulate employment for this area, and for other people who want to live in this community and share with me the small community that we've inherited over the years. And I believe if we continue to work on this favorably, we will continue to have that as we grow. So I want to preserve the heritage of this town, and I also want to preserve that into our growth as well. And I think we have the staff to do that, and I think we have the commission to do that, and I also believe that the town is behind us as well.
Okay, I guess I get to talk. Leapfrogging was one of the things that made San Jose what it is today. They'd run 5 miles of pipeline past a few ranches to put in a development, and that condemned the agricultural land between the development and the city. When you started getting into LAFCOs, Local Agency Formation Commissions, and that was why we have a LAFCO, is because of San Jose, they started looking at what's the problem here. And so one of the regulations is, has been brought up tonight, contiguous growth. No running 5 miles of pipeline out there because somebody wants to be in the city to get the benefits. When we get to you, when everything is developed to you, then your property's up at bat. What really bothers me, and again, I think it's a good project, but what bothers me is the process. I am an urban planner by profession, and process is a law, and you follow it. If you don't like it, you change the law. You don't figure, how do we get around it? So there were many general plan issues, things that were really, really clear. Do this, do that, not until, and then do it. And so between the issues and the timing, it's a really, really tight thing. Now, at this particular time, we have a general plan upgrade in process. Now, that's where all of these issues are going to have to be resolved. And I agree with somebody who was saying, you can't take it one piece at a time because they see that is bypassing the system. You have to take it as a package deal. So the general plan should be the one to say, hey, this is what we want up there. Doesn't matter what happened, like I said, and with no disrespect to 1998 and the other general plan, that was the thinking at the time. Since then we've had a couple of recessions, we've had some hard times, we've had loss of people, bringing in new people, but times change. And your plan has to reflect what's happening in that town. And so with all those things that are happening, and the fact that that general plan, we got it, we did it in what I consider record time for the things I've seen done in my lifetime. It seems like there's a lot of good stuff coming up. And if you're on the fringe edge of a new policy, a very strong thing what the city wants to do, why are you doing on this side? You should wait until that thing says yes or no, and if it says yes, this project is the first one to go to bat. And if the new policy says we're definite, no agricultural land to be changed, then that would be another policy. But it isn't there. But I thought it was real clear, this fact that agriculture was to be kept, and that growth was to be accommodated inside. And what bothers me the most is the concept of the small community. I've always wanted to live here because it was a small historical town. I'm a history buff. And that's one of the reasons I moved here. But I see growth as something that is needed. Well, it's not needed. It's what's going to happen. People have babies, and babies need a place to live. The Monterey Peninsula in the 70s, I think, when the big computers programs were starting, we had a concept called the brain drain. There's all kinds of kids who had degrees, knew how to use computers, but there wasn't a computer on the peninsula. You had to go to San Jose to get a job. My own brother was one of those. He went into a secondary skill because he did not want to move to San Jose after he'd worked there for a while. So that's another issue. We're going to have a lot of kids growing up here, and we're not going to have housing for them. That's not good. You have a housing element. The state has been hounding on us for several years. Say, hey guys, you're making it tough for anybody to develop out here. So you saw tonight, we started working with smaller lots. They're cheaper because just take the dirt alone. There's only so much of it in the world, and there's less available, the price goes up. So there's a lot of dirt out there. So instead of, say, 7,000 foot, 8,000 foot, you get 2 4,500 foot lots. Those may be affordable to a young couple coming up. But again, my big thing is the process and that general plan and the issues that were in it. And that said, I'm not prepared to act on this tonight myself. Are there any other comments from the public based on what you've heard from the commissioners? I'll call for a motion. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make one comment in case it comes up for you guys in the future. As regards hillsides, there are no hillsides in San Juan Bautista. They're all county. Several years ago, Supervisor Patello and I enacted, I think, one of the most stringent, good hillside ordinances I've seen in this area, really. We used, are you from Monterey County, Mr. Chairman?
I worked there for 22 years.
We use Monterey County, Carmel Valley as kind of an example for accommodating both the property interests in developing on hillsides, because we didn't say they should all be off limits, but also recognizing the public's right to a beautiful aesthetic and a view shed, because we really did see our hillsides as being an asset in the community. So, for example, on the old, what's his name's ranch that now Erwin Sewell owns by that cement cross, when the Mayrose Ranch, there's some home sites, and those were all required to have storyboards with orange netting so you could get an understanding exactly of visibility, soils analysis, all of that stuff. So the point is the county has what I'm very proud of as an excellent hillside ordinance that will be in place. Should you ever have questions about that? Thank you.
Jim. Ms. On?
A very brief comment about the Creek Bridge project. That was an infill project, and it was within our urban growth boundary. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioners, we've heard comments. We've made comments of our own. We've heard more comments. What do you want to do tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not clear about what I have heard people in the audience saying about the fact that I own a piece of property that is critical to another, what we say is another issue. And I'm not clear about if I can speak about this issue or not.
This is the issue we're talking about, is the north end.
The north end.
The north end only.
Not the south,
No.
even though that was part of a staff report.
The south end came up because it was in the general plan and related to it. But we're talking about north end, not south end. That comes later.
So, I would like to make some comments.
Okay.
The process that we've been going through to develop the new general plan is an entire, I have applauded the process because we have included young people, we have included a lot of new people at the meetings. It brought a whole new perspective to what's going on here in San Juan Bautista. At the same time, I have been concerned that that process is aimed at a speed that some of us don't recognize. I went through the process with Dan DeFries on the old plan, and we developed a very, very fine general plan. When I read the demographics of the growth in San Juan Bautista in the new draft, when I read about the expansion of population, I think it described me, an 80-year-old woman, widow. I believe that that's where the growth, the segment that's going to need help in San Juan. So having recognized myself in the new general plan and having been involved in the current general plan, the whole process has not gone along with what I learned to do in planning, which was to consider everyone, work with people in small groups like this where you can be heard. The whole committee idea is something that is a little strange to me, even though I've sat on a lot of them, but we sit in a room and discuss. I thought the strategic, and I might be getting completely off this urban boundary thing, but I'm talking about, I hope, something that will help us. The strategic plan committee, I thought in San Juan Bautista, was to have some input for the general plan, and we'll hear about that later this evening, I suppose. So, rushing to set aside what the general plan, current general plan, tells us is, I would be inclined to say we need to stick with that plan and not launch into something new, even though we've been encouraging looking ahead. It seems that the timing is off. Thank you.
Yay.
Okay. I do think the whole commission should be involved with this, and unfortunately one of our members is off tonight, or is out tonight. So I'll call for a motion any way anybody wants to work it.
Are you suggesting tabling it? Are you suggesting continuing?
Well, continuing would give us one more member and a chance to do some extra homework based on what we've heard here. I think it's a decision not to be taken lightly. I think there's some very solid arguments for the project, and there are some very, unfortunately, timely issues facing it.
Well, I'm in favor of this project, and I'm sure everybody knows this by now. I also worked on the strategic planning committee. I've also worked on the general plan, not just this one, but the previous one, previous to the last one, and we were projecting out to double the population of San Juan Bautista at that time, which was for the year 2000. So I worked on several committees at that time. I was raised on a farm here in San Juan Bautista. I know what farming and agriculture is all about. I had to milk goats and cows every morning before I went to school and after school. So I know how important agricultural land is to this community. But yet I do know that we need to share our community with those young people and the old that want to live here. And we need to build homes for them. The Creek Bridge project was very interesting to me because some of the people that came here in favor of the Creek Bridge were all ranchers, because the owner of the property was a rancher. And they all are in agricultural. And one of the things that they were concerned about is having homes for their children. I thought that was kind of odd, being that ranchers had a lot of land. But anyway, those people want to live here in San Juan Bautista, and they are. Some of them are. And I'm very grateful that the people who worked on that Creek Bridge project worked out for the better for the community. And I believe this project will continue to do that for San Juan Bautista. Based on the fact that I worked with people on the strategic planning committee, based on the fact that I worked with this planning commission and the staff of the San Juan Bautista that's working for this project. I know it's going to be something good for the economy of this town, and for the welfare of this town, and also his historical culture and heritage. So that's the way I feel about it. If you want to make a motion to approve this project, I would entertain that. But I also would entertain the fact that we need to discuss it more further, being that one of our members are not here.
So if I move that we continue this, Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this hearing to the July meeting.
So is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, she's going to call a roll.
Oh. Sorry about that. We'll get used to this yet.
Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1 with Commissioner Guerrero absent.
Okay.
Council President, will the absent commissioner then be required to look at the tape
I will make sure that she
to
does.
get all the input?
She would have to in order to be able to to vote on the project at all. In the old days, you just had to read all the documents. Today, you have to read and watch and whatnot. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda.
Action.
Action items. God, that wasn't action. Consider a request by the San Juan Bautista Rotary Club for support of locations for placement of benches in the public right-of-way. This could be controversial. Is there a speaker on this one?
That's
Seth.
me.
6A.
Hey. Get your
Yeah, I'll pull it up in a second.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, good evening again, Planning Commission. I'm actually part of the San Juan Bautista Rotary. It kind
You
of
are?
Yeah, it kind of fits in with my
Congratulations.
personality. I mean, excluding getting up that early in the morning, but anyways, what I have in front of you this evening is to share with you that the Rotary, they were looking to install benches as part of their workday with cleaning up the Orchard Plaza. The state park had kind of denied installing those benches, and they've been having a little bit of trouble working with them to get them installed. And so they approached the city to see if we would be willing to, put those benches in locations around town, mainly focusing in on the historical downtown. And so we met with some of the members from the Rotary, and we looked at key locations downtown. In the staff report, you can find little red dots proposing where those are. We were looking to get getting the support of the commission this evening to install those benches at those locations. The things that we were looking to, or we were keeping in mind when doing this, was making sure that we had ample space for ADA accessibility on the streets. We also, or the sidewalks, excuse me. We also wanted to make sure that we spread these benches throughout downtown, as some people prefer to take breaks on walks, and so making sure that they have places to rest, catch their breath, or enjoy the scenery. Also, we took into consideration where there are some benches located, and so from the staff report you can see that they're located throughout the downtown. And I actually want to pull up a photo here so everyone can see if they haven't seen the benches already.
What Matt's saying is that each of these benches will be in the public right-of-way, and then we will be issuing encroachment permits for those, so they won't be on private property.
Are they already purchased and built?
Yes.
And then
So we have
you
them.
bought them first and the state wouldn't let you put them in?
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder about that. Well, it's their loss. Oh, I think that I like the fact that they look older, that they're not, cookie cutter plastic or something. Now you've got 7 shown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So they were crafted
6.
by the same gentleman that made the dice in
Oh, really?
council
Keith.
chambers. Keith, I'm not sure his last name.
Right?
Keith?
And they were it was reclaimed wood from an old water tank. Redwood
Oh.
water tank. Yeah.
I'll read it.
And,
I've got one of that. Did you buy it from
I got 2 rodeo chairs at home.
So the locations that we were looking at installing these benches was one out in front of the IOOF building. That would be right up along the fence. across the street, directly from that building, there's also another fence where one would be installed. 4 along the front of the orchard lot, and those would be evenly spaced on 3rd Street. And then 1 would be under a magnolia tree right next to a Rare Light Gallery. And yeah, so those were the few locations. The others, because there was a few other places that benches would be placed. 1 would be on the school property, right where the soccer field is, next to the bathrooms. So, you know, you could have a place to relax if someone's taking their time. And then the Mission property, there would be 2 looking to be input, overlooking the San Juan Valley.
Have you worked with the school district on this?
There's a member of the Rotary that represents the school district, and they were open for that. So the Rotary will be working with the school district to...
And the Mission.
Yep, and then same with the Mission. So they're contacting those. But if anything falls through, we have other locations that we would love to have the benches installed in downtown.
Well, once you get them up, I would expect somebody else is going to want some.
Yep, rightfully so. They're excellently handcrafted and very durable. You know, the benches themselves will have you know, the Rotaries the Rotary clubs that participated in the Plaza Cleaning Up Day, and so they'll be represented as they donated the funds to get the benches built. And so tonight we're looking for the Planning Commission's support to install these benches throughout downtown, and yeah, that's what we're looking for.
So who...
Within the public right-of-way, and of course after they...
So if the commission votes yes, does that do it, or does it got to go to council?
Yeah.
Council, okay. So basically we're recommending to council that they, if the commission goes that way,
Support
recommend
this.
to council that they go with the Rotary plan to install benches in the public right-of-way.
Yeah. Well, can I ask what the state park was given some resistance? What is the resistance?
I think
they didn't look right?
One of the concerns was there was benches. They were wanting to put them in the little dirt patch that's on the 3rd Street side, you know, in between the sidewalk and the wall. They wanted to put the benches there, but I think the state park was concerned about people using the bench to hop over into the plaza. At least that was what I understood. Yeah.
Which they could do anyway.
Right.
That's too bad, because the perfect location would be against that wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And once they hop over the wall and they get in there, then they can't get out.
There's a jail in the state park.
Yeah.
Cactus plants make real good biological warfare.
I think accessibility to that area is a problem. I mean, there should be accessibility.
Yep.
And maybe this was a way to get closer to that reality. But anyway, yeah, I'm in favor
I
of
like
this.
it.
Yeah.
About the pickup.
Can I ask a question? Weren't these benches made to be inside the park area and the state wouldn't let them put them in there? And they were going to create a nice garden in there?
Chris, do you know if they're going to put them inside the...
There was talk back and forth about a number of different locations. The issues, as I understand them, were the being too close to the wall, and people, as Matt mentioned, being able to get over the wall. They also, when they looked at the design, should I... So being the location adjacent to the wall was an issue, and people being able to access that orchard garden. And then secondarily, that when they looked at the design, like as you're seeing it here, what you can't tell is that there are 2 steel posts that go down into the ground and secure it to the ground, so they can't be stolen. And the park, in their initial review, did not account for the digging to be done in what is a historic area, and so that would have to go back to the archaeologists and so forth from the state, and it became a quagmire. So I think there are secondary plans, future plans for additional benches, additional tables, but this was really the first step. Rebuilding the arbor, cleaning up the pathways, rebuilding pathways, installing drip system, all of that was done, and there is continuing work in that area. All the gates were rebuilt.
That's great.
That's public access is certainly the goal. I mean, I can tell you that's right at the top of my list. That absolutely is the goal. But incrementally, it's a difficult organization to work through. So incrementally, this is what we were able to accomplish in the short term, and on budget.
How much of that going to sit out the side?
So is there any archaeological studies being made of that area that we know?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
Larry Kane has been and his daughter have been the primary movers on this. That's why I suspect there won't be an issue. This is very well ingrained with the church, so I suspect they've pulled those issues. And the other location was...
There was two at the mission.
Two at the mission and one...
One at the school.
Oh, yeah. So the school superintendent's a Rotary member. And the new school superintendent who's about to take over has been attending the meetings as well.
So there's 7 altogether, and they were supposed to all go into the park?
Yes.
10.
Oh, were they all supposed to go into the park originally?
I don't believe so. I believe the intent was to put a number of them across the front and then some into the park.
But
I'm not entirely clear.
These are definitely alternative places.
I believe so.
Besides the ones that are proposed to be on 3rd Street in front of the plaza, because now they're going to be in the sidewalk, which is the city's right of way. So it's a matter of feet compared to where they're planning to put 6 of them originally. So we're going to have less along that
How much
frontage.
space is it going to take up out of the sidewalk?
Well, the sidewalk there is pretty wide, and those benches are
22 inches.
22?
22 inches.
yeah, we'll have them right on the very edge of the sidewalk.
So ADA won't be an issue.
No, there's plenty of space there.
Okay.
So once they're installed on the city property, they will remain there. We're going to have them.
Yes.
It occurs to me, 2 things occur to me. One is perhaps the Rotary's plaque could include the name of the building that, for example, the one across the street from Bear's Hideaway, there was an old movie theater there called the Star that could say the site of, and then over at the IOOF Hall to give recognition to that. Down at the one under the magnolia tree is the telephone company, and the telephone company, the bench that would go to the real old telephone company would be at the Crane House, next to the Masonic, so forth. The other thought is that if we put some more benches, that we consider the design of the old Liar's Bench that's so famous, sitting in the museum, and put that out somewhere. It doesn't look like those. It could be made out of barrel wood and last longer. I don't know if we could put the seat belt that came out of a car on it to replicate the Liar's Bench, but that would be a fun thing to add if we are interested in other benches.
To be in the same location? The Liar's Bench?
The Liar's Bench in the same location that it was in front of?
Yeah.
It was originally in front of the real estate...
Corvia's Johnny Shoe Shop.
Well, that's where it ended up. It was originally in front of the land office real estate building because that was the men's club in the early 1960s.
Okay.
So that's where it was.
We debated putting one in that location that you're describing to be the new Liar's Bench, but there wasn't the right amount of space for accessibility.
And
so
we have
Okay. I'll call for a motion. What kind of action would you like to take on this?
Oh, I think we should support it to go before the city council.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
We have a motion to recommend the City Council that they accept the Rotary's proposal to install benches throughout the city
Could at least do that.
at designated locations. That will take a... Public comment? Oh, public comment. I'm sorry. Does anybody would like to speak on this, for or against?
What about the plaque idea?
That's a good point, too.
I mean, the Rotary.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's up to the Rotary. That wouldn't be us telling them what to do.
But
Unless you want to
we
put
can
the historical ones.
we can suggest it or recommend it to them.
We have two members here we
I
can
mean, we
talk
could-
up to.
We could put that, I mean, that's something we could
Yeah,
put in
no.
later.
No, I can report that back and share
Well,
that
we'd be
idea.
happy to go to city council and argue for it.
Well, I just, yeah, definitely.
Okay, roll call?
Commissioner Gallardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Mederos?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1, Commissioner Yubert absent.
Thank you. The next action item we have, discuss general plan update and review Cal Poly proposal to update the environment impact report. Okay. So where are we on the general plan and what is Cal Poly proposing? Is that the issues?
Okay, so just to update everyone, we do have a meeting coming up next week on June 16th. It'll be held at the community center at 6 p.m. There will be food provided. So the draft that we're going to be presenting that night is going to be the draft that we've received comments on. Staff's been working with Cal Poly to make the necessary edits and changes to reflect those comments that we've heard. So that evening we're going to be presenting what's been changed since the draft has been out for public review. One of the next steps that's coming up and that we're looking for direction tonight is that once we do have a solid draft that we feel okay with, then we're going to be proceeding to do an environmental impact report on that draft. We project that we would start that sometime in fall, so it does give us time over the summer to kind of look at the general plan draft that will be proposed or presented on the 16th of June. So in preparation for that environmental impact report, because that's going to be the next step down the road, I went out and researched and collected several quotes from consultants in the nearby area, and those consultants, they quoted us $100,000 to $200,000 to do an environmental impact report, and just similarly to do the general plan, I mean, they were ranging from $200,000 to $500,000. Cal Poly, who worked on our general plan and has gotten us to this point, they charged us $36,000 to do the general plan update. Cal Poly does do EIRs, or environmental impact reports, and they quoted us $70,000. And so, from seeing the work that the students have done over the past 9 months and being led by the professor, keep in mind that they're second-year master's students, the work that they put together, in my opinion, was very quality, as well as the outreach that we put together. I know Georgiana was commenting earlier saying that it was definitely fast-paced, which it is. I don't know how long the county, they've been working on their general plan for a few years, and I mean, I'm all for taking a vacation and come back in a year if that's what we need to do. But anyways, given that it is a faster pace because we do have 17 students working on the general plan, I mean, I think it is a very good document, and I've been trying to make sure that we get it out there for all to review. But with this environmental impact report, it would be a similar situation where if we went with Cal Poly to do EIR, they would start in fall and then work another 9 months. And there would be more professors involved with this because there's specialized reports that need to be worked on to evaluate the general plan environmentally. And so what we're looking for tonight from the Planning Commission is a recommendation from this body to the City Council that we go with Cal Poly, their quote of $70,000 to prepare an environmental impact report once we have an accepted administrative draft, which basically means a draft that we feel is ready to be looked at environmentally. So that's what we're looking for tonight. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
I've got one that bothers me.
Sure.
This contract that they're proposing, the agreement, is a research agreement. I'm a planner. I'm looking for an environmental impact report.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell my city council, research what? I'm going to say, I would rather say they're going to prepare an environmental impact report for the general plan you guys just ready to adopt. I mean, so all through this thing, they keep talking about research agreement, research whatever, and it's a term I'm not familiar, it's foreign to me, as a number of things I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm all for, speaking English. I'm very clear. And research doesn't, it sounds like they're trying to get information for a new body of science, whereas I'm saying the body of science that exists, I want you to use that to evaluate the impacts of my general plan. So that's where I'm coming from. You might make a note of that.
That's a good point.
Is there anybody in the public who would like to comment on this proposal? Might have an answer. Maybe.
I haven't seen the proposal, but my question
It's in your packet.
Yes,
Well-
she doesn't get.
we don't get the packets. I guess that's another point. I would really like the staff reports to be put online so that everybody can see them, and that would promote transparency as well. Because I have to bug Trish every time when I want to see something. And all the other cities put them online, including San Benito County and Hollister. Will the Planning Commission be reviewing the draft general plan before the EIR gets prepared on it?
Yeah, this contract would start in the school year,
Yeah, in the fall.
and they're presenting it. See, that meeting on the 16th is not a general plan committee meeting. It's not a what do you call it, the other one? It is a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the City Council.
Really?
It's not a committee meeting.
Oh,
The-
I
the-
assumed
the
it was an
committee people-
advisory.
The committee people and the advisory people are public citizens. This is a governmental body.
I was
Planning
not aware
Commission
of
and
that.
council.
And I'm not sure other people are aware of that either. So you're meeting on Monday, the 16th?
Right, it's a
At
noticed
6
meeting.
o'clock in Community Hall again, where we can't hear anything?
Well,
that's
they're
being
gonna
said?
try and locate it as best they can. The bottom line was, if it's that big of an issue, general plan, and we have it in a small room where people have to be outside in the cold,
I understand.
then we're denying them their rights.
Right.
And so, if they're not talking loud enough, you say, hey. But I mean, I'm serious. This,
Well,
I tried because they were going to do it here. I says, no. And first, it was going to be part of my agenda. I says, no way. Not
Okay,
this
I
commission.
understand what you're
We
saying.
go to another building where there's room for everybody that wants to come in and who should be here.
Okay, my other question is, can this be posted online so that others can take a look at it before Monday, the
What?
16th?
What?
The final draft that
That's
the
what they're
Planning
presenting at the
Commission.
meeting.
I know, but
Well, problem is that we don't have it yet, basically.
you're not going to have it before that meeting either?
No, that's
To
what
look at?
they're presenting what's changed from the last draft.
So it's just a presentation. There's not going to be any action taken.
There could be action if there's, I mean, it depends on what we hear. I mean, if people have reviewed the draft and then here's what's changed, and people
I
are in
know, but you
agreeance if
just
they're not.
mentioned reviewed the draft. And my question is, we need time to review the draft to make, I mean, just presenting it on the night of, then there's no time for reflection.
Mhm.
Isn't it on lately?
Well, there's a draft that went out for the public review period, which is basically the month of April. And then from those comments that we heard back, then those are going to be addressing what's going to be in that presentation, which will basically go over, hey, this is what we've heard and this is the changes that we've made.
Okay, well,
And so if we want to extend, we wanted to get the city council and the planning commission on the same page to say, hey, we have a draft, these are the comments that we've heard and this is where we're at. Necessarily we don't have to get approval on that night. It's just to get those, because they're going to be the groups that are going to, in the end, approve the document. And so if we have the General Plan Advisory Committee, strategic planning, members from the public, that's what we want to all bring there that night. Because once we say, hey, this is the draft we had, here's what's changed, then we can get feedback from that.
okay, so it's more of an informational presentation.
Well, it's
Hopefully
more than
there-
that, because the commission could say, yeah, let's take it and run with it. What you can do with this, it doesn't matter what your draft was. That's ancient history. All we need to deal with is what is being presented. You could put that online. Anybody who wants to read it is welcome to it. The commissioners could read it. And then we'll have that formal presentation, because that's when you're going to start answering questions. I think the presentation is to get any comments out of the Planning Commission and the Council, to get them to buy into it and say, okay, we'll accept it and we'll start working with it. The adoption process. But if we're going to spend all kinds of time saying, well, back in March we said this, and in June we said this, and now we're saying that, that's a waste of time. So I think, since you've got that draft that came in, everybody had a chance to shoot at it, and they did. They said, here's our bullets. We made the changes. Now you have a document. And that's the only one we need to do. It doesn't matter what was. Misspelled the word, well, we changed this word. Who cares? The concept is, here's the book we're presenting to you. Here's the principal parts. Because some people can read it and really don't understand it. And, we speak the same language. And that way you get more time for public comments.
Right.
Especially if they had if anybody sits down and reads this thing, they'd be in a position to ask questions. And I'd rather have those questions coming off that new document, because then we can start saying, okay, what do we want to do about this? Go with it, or maybe there's enough justification to change it. I'd rather talk about changes from the public on the new document than changes that you made from the old one, because everything they said is going to be in that book. And we want to read it and say, okay, Commission, Council, here's what we've got for you. That's my thought on that. Commissioners, what do you think? We could spend a lot of time telling us what was sent out and what they did to it, versus, here's that book. We read it online. You're going to have to get a hard copy.
I have a hard copy too.
Well, he doesn't have a computer, though.
I know, but just because I have a computer does not mean that reading it page by page, 165 or whatever it is,
300 and something.
300 and something, was the same as being able to have it, and I don't feel as if I want to use that much ink of my own.
Well, like I say, the commissioners can deal with staff. But the key thing is, do you see where I'm coming from on the strategy for this?
The strategy.
First of all, we made it clear, this is not a committee meeting. They're presenting to the guys who are going to carry the ball now.
So what we're actually having is a special meeting
Yes, a special,
of each of those entities.
no, a special meeting of the Planning Commission and City Council.
And together.
It's a joint meeting.
At which they can take some action.
They can.
They-
They can say, we accept, because remember, the consultant's put all his money, he wants his money, but he doesn't get it until he presents a product. Hey, I'm saying this, and we're saying, we like it, we'll take it, we'll go with it. We're not approving it, we're accepting it for staff to work with. Because they still have to adopt it. This is not adopting it, this is taking it in hand so you can move.
Work with it.
That's the one we want to go with.
Yeah.
If it is. If
We-
not, we need to put these changes in.
So I-
And not only Planning Commission, but the City Council there, the public's there, the Strategic Planning Committee's there, the press is there. I think it's a good move. I think the transparency is there.
And the point of that is to bring everyone together on that same night. And yes, it would be ideal to have the freshest, latest version, but I don't even have it. And so, I mean, that's...
You tell them, Shilingi.
Yeah, I know the students were working actually all weekend. They're texting me and emailing me, hey, I got this part done, and
But see, the
24-hour
thing is,
service.
you don't want to come to this council, this joint meeting with less than a finished product there. Say, hey guys, this is it. Because these aren't the kind of meetings that are continued. This is, we had a special meeting, a joint meeting. We're going to accept that bundle, and then we're going to start working on it. Because your different committees can't do much because it hasn't been accepted by council. So we're going to say, hey, we're the commission, it's our job to take it. Council, back us up. And so now we've got it in-house officially. Right up to now, it's just a work in progress. It'll still be a work in progress, but it'll be toward adoption.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about this this item here that we're supposed to make action on?
So that was for focusing specifically on the EIR. So that's setting ourselves up.
It's an EIR research project. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I was just going to say something else on that. I mean, I went through this, and I agree with our chairman here that research sounds a little bit foreign from what we want to do here. But also, why can't we put this on one page? I mean, how come we got 4 or 5 pages?
This is an official agreement
Oh, I
from the
know
Cal Poly
it is, but can't they
Corporation.
put this on one page for signature? I mean, it'd be a lot nicer.
And the other
There's
thing
a lot
too-
of,
yeah.
you know,
It's a contract.
Yeah, this is an official contract from the Cal Poly Corporation, and it's actually pretty similar. I would assume that the general plan probably said research agreement for that one too. I'd have to check, but
Well, what did our lawyers think of it?
for this,
good question.
well, we're getting a recommendation from this body, and then the lawyer
For
will
them
be
to look at it.
looking at it.
The other thing it's again, when you adopt something or pass something, it's got to be legally defensible. And when you use abbreviations and you use colloquialisms, there is always room for doubt. Now, to you, Cal Poly is California Polytechnic College, etc. To somebody else, what's a Cal Poly? There's 2 of them. There's one at Pomona. So my thought is, and I saw it in another one, when you use a word for the first time, EIRs, they performed EIRs, whatever those are, environmental impact reports, parenthesis EIR, and then you can use EIR for the rest of the document. But it has to be defined or spelled someplace in the beginning.
Are you talking about the
This
the
and all
agreement?
these other documents we were looking at too.
The agreement or the...
Well, our resolution and the agreement. But look for that as you go through. But especially that one. I mean, if you're going to use the word EIR, spell it out first.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple others in there that I just felt. Because you get a bunch of planners talking and you hear alphabet soup. And it's, wait a minute, guys. So, where are we?
So even if we were to go along with this, we should change, it says Cal Poly in the resolution. We should be using exactly the same term as in the contract. It says a corporation.
It's okay.
And it is a separate, it is not Cal Poly. It is a separate corporation serving Cal Poly,
Well,
just to make the audience
Within
understand
Cal
what
Poly,
we're
within the
looking
Cal
at.
Poly system.
It's a Cal Poly school or
Cal Poly,
corporation.
the big one is the government. And here you've got a nonprofit organization within it. So that they can handle money because the chancellor, whoever runs the school can't handle money. They do it on the table. Okay,
right.
So discuss and review the proposal.
And did it say action item?
It's
an action item.
So with those major changes, we could have staff work it over and bring it back to the next meeting, or we can say do it.
Well, if I can just say something to it, and in the resolution, which, I mean, the agreement, I'd have to go back to Cal Poly and say, hey, these are some of the things we want to add into the agreement. As far as the resolution goes, I mean, it does have in the title, Environmental Impact Report. It's impact, not impact, so that's one thing we'll have to change, but it's on the very bottom of the title. So I think it's there for the resolution, but I mean, what we're looking for is, is this the direction we should go, or should we look at, you know, seeing if those consultants might be a better route to go? I mean, that's...
Well, the students did a lot of work on that thing and put something together in you know, warp time, so to speak, and it seems to be a package. It's, you know, at least these folks understand what they're talking about. I think, you know, some of the stuff I've seen, we need some more English instructors out there. And I'm to the point now when I read something, the words just pop up at me. I did so much editing. And so, you know, just periods, commas, whatever. So that's something, you know, I want it not just to be technically correct. I want it to be a really good-looking document. I saw one time, an EIR that was prepared. I thought it was done by a PhD English professor. I mean, it was that beautiful. And the guy says, no, I just did good in English, but I just like writing EIRs. But I mean, if it looks good, you got a better chance of believability than something that's misspelled. You know, you want this kid to really understand what we're talking about here. So we'll be looking for that. But on this contract, I have no problem with the students doing it because I think we're under guidance, and the university system has all the different areas. You know, they can use the engineering department, they can use the science department, you know, you name it. Archaeological history, everything is there in one package deal, and you're getting a bargain. Sure, you do it on their time schedule, but if we're willing to accept that, that's accessible too. So I have no problem with the students, with the university doing it. Commissioners?
Is this the same contract? Was it worded similarly? I don't remember. When we contracted to do the draft.
Yeah, it's pretty much boilerplate besides, I mean, changing the highlighted words. So, but I mean, I can go and make sure that we get that wording that we would like in that agreement, and then, you know, we can bring it to City Council with that wording that you recommend tonight incorporated, specifically focusing on make sure it's an environmental impact report and making that clear.
And it was called the Cal Poly Corporation that has been doing the work up to now.
Yeah, and like Commissioner Franco or Chairman Franco pointed to, that they're kind of the ones that handle this money inside the state education system.
Receive money.
Yes.
So
we're recommending, we're going forward with this, with our recommendations to make the changes.
Well, we can wait.
To have it presentable to City Council for approval?
Well, they won't meet until the middle of July, and so we have one more shot.
So have them come back with the finished...
Clean copy, yeah.
Okay.
How's that work?
We'll make that motion today?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
They weren't expecting to do that
until fall anyway.
Next
It
week.
doesn't matter what they're expecting, it's what the commission is.
Okay.
They could do it on the 17th. I mean,
If it were if we had said yes, but we're saying
See you on the 7th, see you in July.
Yeah.
so.
I mean, let's face it, to have a document that, you know, that bad, says something about our commission. So let's clean it up, and when we adopt it, we say, hey, we clean them up and we adopt them.
And clean up the resolution so that it says Cal Poly Corporation in every case?
And
When we're
defines
ready.
all the terms. Yeah, I mean, this is a straight English problem now. Just
so you'd like to see the making it clear about the EIR, and then also
first time you use it, environmental impact
Yep.
report, and everything else is the EIR after that. And that
then-
way, there's no question if you get challenged, you know, and you have to defend it.
And that's the agreement.
And then also, you were saying referring to Cal Poly, put them as contracted with the corporation, Cal Poly Corporation.
How would they do it? I just want to make sure that if Cal Poly Corporation is their name.
That we're talking with the city and Cal Poly that we are in the process of making a contract with them to complete an EIR on our
And-
general plan.
And reflect that in the
Yeah.
resolution. Okay.
So that we can support that come next meeting. And pass a resolution on that to make a recommendation for city council approval. To accept. Right? So was that my motion or what?
Sounds good to me. Is there a second?
Come on, Pat. Second.
Roll call vote for a vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Bilardi?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, and the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1. Commissioner Guevara absent.
Okay.
Boy, is she going to have some homework.
Okay.
Well,
now,
you got that right.
where's our staff?
Okay, now we got discussion items.
Ah, finally.
A, Cal Poly Studio Projects presentation.
So I'd like to give a just a little intro before we have Eric speak on his topic. As I had mentioned, with having the 17 master's students help us out with the general plan, there was kind of an unexpected benefit that occurred that I didn't realize what was going to happen. And that was there were 7 master's students that were basically going to implement a portion of the general plan that's being prepared now. And so those are some of the things that are in the programs and policies of the general plan. And so anyways, some of those items that were, or reports that were put together was updating the design guidelines, and the student was working with us the other day. Complete streets updates, that's something that's going to be spoken on tonight. Bike master plan, which is something that if we're going for funding for bike routes and bike paths, it's good to have in place to show that you have a plan for when you receive funding. Economic strategy plan, gateways and roundabouts, which Eric will be presenting on, parking study, and farmers market feasibility study. So these are some of the things that the students have worked on and have participated in coming and giving presentations to some other committees and groups in San Juan. And I'd like to welcome Eric to go over his presentation on gateway and roundabouts, as well as he will touch base on another student's project, which was bike master plan.
So, good evening. My name is Eric Serrano. I'm actually starting off with the bicycle master plan that was done by another colleague of mine. I'm presenting on behalf of them. We kind of worked a little bit on the project together because my project is gateway designs. We wanted to ensure the projects kind of compensated or were related in different aspects. So,
Just, I'll get it.
Dave, you want to come? Can Dave see?
Okay, so what's the point? So the presentation will show you how to improve the bicycle environment for San Juan Bautista. It will be improved by making the system more efficient, safe, and appealing. This presentation will discuss the costs of the proposed improvements and how it might be possible to pay for the bicycle infrastructure. So the current situation. Currently, less than 0.5% of San Juan Bautista's residents commute by bicycle. This is below national, state, and regional percentages. This should surprise you since San Juan Bautista is less than a square mile. Research has shown that most people are actually willing to bicycle, commute to work in areas up to 5 miles. So essentially, most people will be willing to commute to about 5 miles. So San Juan Bautista is really primed for that kind of bicycle infrastructure. The current allocation of bicycle infrastructure can explain as to why people don't really get to use their bicycles. Currently, there are only 5 public bike racks and only 1 Class 2 bike lane at the northern end of the city. So people might not be biking as much because of the lack of infrastructure. So this map just kind of shows you the bicycle racks in town, and then this is the Class 2 bike lane that leads out on First Street. So methodology. So in order to work on this document for the proposed improved bicycle network, several documents were cited. Among those include the San Benito County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, which is this document, the Gateway Design for San Bautista. The methodology also incorporates other graduate programs like that one and the Complete Streets. There's also incorporation of design manuals for bicycle facilities, including Caltrans Highway Design Manual. So this is the proposed network. As you can see, there's a class 3 bike lane here. This little dotted area is kind of to correspond to my design guidelines or design for the gateways, which makes it a class 1 bike lane. You'll see the blue lines throughout. It's a class 3 bike route, so here in this area. You also notice more bike racks, class 3 bike racks all over this area to kind of help with more, making it easier, more accessible for bicyclists. So in order to support the proposed bicycle network, policies also had to be produced. These include policies dedicated to safety, including educating children and adults, standards for sighting, and safe dimensions for bikeways. And they also have to make it effective by means of making sure that the network is complete and there's adequate parking where cyclists need it. So like the map pointed out, the bicycle network is very lengthy and there's plenty of room for bicycle racks so people can actually bike and stop. They also have to make it affordable. That includes policies with regards to identifying and pursuing different funding sources. So this is kind of a breakdown of costs. They show the average cost, median cost, minimum cost, maximum cost. Daniel, the person who wrote the document, kind of recommends it probably be in this range. The class 3 and class 2 bike lanes would be the easier ones. The class 3 are your shared roads, which are shared bike lanes between vehicles and bicyclists. The class 2 is your common bicycle buffer, or your painted bike lane, that kind of thing. And the class 1 is you're separated from vehicles with the physical barrier kind of thing. So that's why it's more expensive than the other ones. It's actual physical infrastructure improvement. The other ones can be done simply by painting over the line or painting the streets and demarcating it for a different use. So where do we go from here? One of the things you can do is adopt the bicycle plan and adopt other plans incorporating bicycle improvements. Myself, I'll talk a little bit about in the next project about that, as well as Andrew talks a bit about Complete Streets, which also incorporate bicycle improvements overall. So Gateway Designs for San Bautista, this is my project. I just want to make sure I touch on everything. So issues addressed. So Gateway Design was very important. You know, we wanted to make sure that it fit the environment as well as any proposed future uses. We want to facilitate development. So gateways are very crucial in showing the area how it can develop or make it more pedestrian friendly. It also aids in transitioning land uses. So if you're coming into town, such as one of the gateways is in First Street, as you're coming into town from that rural setting to that single family home setting, that transitioning uses, the gateways kind of help to slow down traffic and make it more pedestrian friendly and more family friendly kind of thing. There's safer pedestrian access points. Pedestrian access is very key to a lot of developments. You don't want to go somewhere where you're not feeling safe. So that was addressed in the designs. It also incorporates different modes of travel. It's not just about making people and bicycles the primary means. It's also incorporating other types of vehicles, you know, your trucks and your buses and your cars. And it also addresses complete streets aspects. So making sure everybody has room on the road through sidewalks, roads, parking, all that kind of thing. So developing solutions. So in order to develop my gateway designs, I looked at the current land uses of the area as well as proposed land uses under the 2035 draft general plan. I looked at proposed new developments in the area just to make sure that any gateway design didn't really deteriorate from what was kind of coming down the pipeline. I also used urban street design guidelines from the National Association of City Transportation Officials. They have a good design guideline book that kind of gives you what's been proven to work in making streets safer. I also used the Department of Transportation to design roundabouts to ensure that they were adequate in size and to accommodate different vehicle modes. and I worked within the existing right-of-way just to minimize any potential costs in acquiring any easements or property. I used this with GIS software and AutoCAD just to make sure my measurements were correct. And then I incorporated or made 3 to 4 designs for each individual gateway. So the First Street gateway is just this area right here. And so this is what kind of I propose. So you'll see that you'll notice that there's an 11-foot driveway right down the middle, so that's big enough to accommodate all different vehicle types. This area doesn't call for any parking, so one of the ways to make sure emergency access was addressed was to provide a 5-foot shoulder so cars can kind of go off to the side and make sure emergency vehicles had enough space to get in and out. There's also a 2-foot vegetation buffer. The multi-use path is about 10 feet, but the vegetation buffer and the elevated path help to ensure that pedestrians and vehicles don't go into each other's side. When I was designing this, I knew the elevated surface would prevent vehicles from going onto the multi-use path, but my fear was that people kind of meander off paths at times. I didn't want them to go into where vehicles would be going, so it's more of a safety measure. So the 10-foot multi-use path is adequate enough for both bicyclists and pedestrians. 2 people walking side by side is about 5 feet, so you can still have enough room for a bicyclist. Also, I really wanted to make sure that the trees were there, the trees that are there stayed there. So my designs that call for them being left alone, so that it's a natural resource. It's a great kind of thing coming into town. And so I really didn't want to mess with that. I thought that was perfect the way it was. It kind of helps to really make it a very beautiful and scenic place. So this is kind of what it could look like. The design incorporates a roundabout. Let me give you the exact dimensions. So the inscribed circle diameter, this is using the Department of Transportation's recommendations and guidelines. So this inside circle is 100 feet and the outside circle is roughly 140 feet. So that's enough for a semi-truck to come in and turn around. That was one of the issues addressed. One of the problems is semi-trucks come into town, so we wanted to give them an easy access route to get out so they don't have to go through town. Again, you'll see the street here, vegetation to still stay in the multi-use path. The roundabout incorporates landscaping, and this little block here would be a monument sign welcoming people into San Juan Bautista. So just a message like welcome to city history, or welcome to San Juan Bautista. So the next one is Mokelumne Street Gateway. So it's this area here. So this is the Mokelumne Street Gateway. You'll notice a median with a bioswale. This project incorporates low-impact development strategies, or LID features. So the idea with the median with the bioswale is to help filter water from permeable surfaces prior to entering any groundwater areas. There's 10-foot shared bike lanes or shared drive lanes that would incorporate both vehicles and bicyclists. The idea here is to make sure there's enough room for both and kind of slow down traffic. So with the shared drive lanes in these areas, when you're traveling at a certain speed, it actually serves as a traffic calming measure. Parking would be on both sides of the street, be measured 8 by 22 feet, 8 by 22 foot stalls. That's enough for a vehicle to fit comfortably in. The idea here is to demarcate the parking stalls so that parking is actually not affected in the area and would be sufficient for current and proposed land uses. And then again, the 12-foot sidewalk, very important to make it very pedestrian friendly. And, you'll see that there's enough room for a through zone for people to go through in and out, and enough room for outdoor dining or street furniture. You can't really see in the details, but there's a light post here and trees. All the trees should be of native species just to coincide with the environment. And lighting should be no taller than 15 feet just to give it that pedestrian scale. So this is kind of what it would look like. These are different pedestrian crossings. This is a pinch point curb extension, gateway curb extension. These will just kind of help with the overall development of the area, making it very accessible, very pedestrian friendly. The idea with these type of curb extension is that they give you the impression that the street is narrowing as you're driving, so you want to slow down because you think the road's narrowing, but in reality it's not. It's still the same width. It's just making pedestrians who are about to cross the street more visible to oncoming traffic. Again, you can see the trees here throughout, and the median throughout. There's also parking here, kind of out throughout the area. This is the roundabout coming into town. This roundabout would be a 70-foot inside circle with a 100-foot outside circle. Again, landscaping and a monument sign welcoming residents into San Juan Bautista. So this is the 3rd Street Alameda Gateway. So this one has 2 different street elevations. The reason for that is because past Pierce Street, the street widens a bit, actually a lot, from 66 feet to 58 feet, so that's an 8-foot widening, but the characteristics stay the same. So again, we'll have another median with bioswale, again another low impact development feature, with 10-foot drive lanes on either side, 8-foot parking. Parallel parking should really try to incorporate permeable pavers, another low impact development strategy, and allow water to filter in and kind of percolate into the ground. The sidewalk should be used, should be about 10 feet. Allows for, again, for pedestrians to easily access the sidewalk into other uses. There's also incorporated street furniture such as trash cans and benches, street lights and trees. Again, this is all kind of things to make a very pedestrian friendly environment and very kind of just want people to be there kind of thing. So this is the other past Pierce Street. Because of the size of it, I incorporated diagonal parking, which aids in giving more parking spaces to that area. There's still enough room for 11-foot shared drive lanes. Still the median's still there. The sidewalk changes inside a little bit just to compensate for the diagonal parking. But overall, the size still wide enough for people to walk comfortably. And then this is what it would look like. Again, crossing here, and then parking throughout with trees separated every 100 feet or so. And again, native species would be very important. This is the roundabout, kind of a preliminary design with landscaping, and then the monument sign, again, welcoming people into San Juan Bautista.
And what's the dimensions of that?
The dimensions for that one are 75 feet inside and 110 feet outside. So this is implementation phasing. So one of the things I was working on and was working with my advisor was discussing how to kind of get this project, what would the steps would be take. These are kind of preliminary type things. But one of the big things that would need to occur is the right-of-way acquisition. The roundabouts, because of their size, would be very important to acquire that property. So one of the things that would be in my report is update to the general plan, just to have a way to address the gateway designs so that it can be codified in the ordinance. And the ordinance essentially would provide a line setback from the property to incorporate the roundabouts, or given time and given funding resources, the city could eventually acquire the right-of-way so that there's no development on the property in that space. Then again, the phasing would be simple, so sidewalk construction, restriping. Restriping would be the most cost-effective way to get things done quickly. It could be just painting the road with shared road signs or bicycle lanes. The multi-use path would be, or vegetation medians would be second phases, and then the final phase throughout all the designs would be the roundabout and the development of the gateway design. And that's it.
Any comments, commissioners?
How about a roundabout for 156?
Can't do that. Well, I can't do that. The state would have to do that. Yeah, I worked within, my big thing was trying to work within as much as possible within the city's right-of-way. So all these different gateways are, except for the roundabouts are really hard because they're of their sheer size, but I put them in position so that when they would be implemented, they didn't take as much space as if they were 10 feet that way or 10 feet that way. So it's really trying to just work as much within the confines of the city's right-of-way.
In the general plan updated, if there's going to be any improvements to 156 at the Alameda. Roundabouts would need to be considered as part of that recommendation for making better traffic flow and safety in that intersection.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do, I'm completely ignorant of roundabouts. How do people and their dogs get from one side of the street to the other?
Go to the
Yeah, so here, the sidewalk would still continue throughout, but there would be pedestrian crossings here. You can have another one here. You'd still have them. The idea with the roundabout is that vehicles coming in slow down, and you can position your pedestrian crossings further down away from where the cars would be entering, but there would still be plenty of pedestrian crossings. As a matter of fact, you could probably put them in better positions because you give them a greater line of sight when they're coming in, so that it's very clear that someone's there. Again, you can put different type of curb extensions to accentuate that people are there. So this one has kind of a gateway curb extension, so when you're crossing the street, people see you. You know, you don't want to be hidden, like, you know, when you're in the sidewalk, you just start walking across the street, no one sees you. But if you protrude the sidewalk a little bit outward through the gateway curb extension, you make yourself more aware, more present to oncoming traffic. So it really helps to make it safer for pedestrians.
And with the new law that says the vehicle must stop until the person is on the sidewalk across the street, and all their kids and their dogs as well. Anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
So one of the things, what's good about these type of curb extensions is that they decrease the amount of the distance that a pedestrian actually has to cross the street. So when I was saying that the narrowing of the street gives the vehicle the impression that it is narrowing, it is doing that, it's slowing them down, but it's also making that distance smaller for you to cross the street. So if you notice this one, you see how the sidewalk would be here, but it's a little bit out. That's going to give you 10 feet less that you have to cross when you're working with about a 20, 25 foot drive lane, or drive lanes, I should say. So it really makes it smaller for you to have to cross, and it makes it easier because again, you'll be more visible as you cross.
And people love to walk in the street in San Juan. They don't like to walk in the sidewalk.
Safer on the street.
So where there is
Safer on the street.
and where there is sidewalk.
Yeah, and I'm one of those too.
I was going to. Now you were telling that the truck could turn around in one of the turnabouts.
Right.
Can they still come in to the city?
So the first street.
Yeah.
Let me get back. This might take a while, but the first street was the one that was big enough for
a truck to turn around.
Yeah. So this one's a bit bigger than all the other ones. But the idea there, I was working with Matt and kind of heard it through our general plan outreach that people don't like when the trucks come through town. It's an issue, which makes sense. Nobody really wants a semi.
Yeah, I know, but there might be a need for a truck to come in for freight, whatever.
Right, and this gives them that flexibility. I mean, sometimes trucks make the wrong turn and like, oh, I don't want to go through town. I want to go back to the freeway.
Okay.
So that kind of gives them the option.
So you're saying 120? You said 120 feet radius?
The outside one's 140.
140.
The inside one is about 110.
And it would make the turn down, it's not going to stay on First Street, is it?
No.
No.
Yeah, the idea would be to want them to go out of town. And so the roundabout would be slow them down enough. They'll go, I think it's about 15 miles an hour. No, that's not slow. It's
Less
very
than
slow. It's very slow in the roundabout so they kind of get out.
And a roundabout, you don't have to stop unless you have to.
Right, exactly. That's another thing.
Yeah, there's no lights, there's no...
So the people are just at your mercy.
Well, people have a right of way.
Yeah.
So do bikes.
First one there wins.
Yeah,
all I know is that it does slow down traffic enough so that you can see, you can see approaching a roundabout what traffic there is there, because you can't go in unless the traffic is clear.
Exactly.
And if pedestrians are there, you can't go in.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and congratulations on taking planning as a profession.
It's a good profession.
It worked for you, huh?
I work on the an EIR for the school. We did at Clear Lakes, So we do it pretty good, I think.
Looking forward to it.
Cornelius is a good boss.
Did you get an A, huh?
We got paid.
Or just a pass?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, the next item we have on the agenda
No, we have
is...
We got the next guy.
Oh, how many we have?
just two.
Oh, two, okay.
But Eric did two presentations because
Yeah.
one of the other students couldn't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to diss you on
Thank you.
that.
That's okay.
Planners have to take care of each other here.
I'm actually going to just go through my PDF document. I think it's going to be more informative than the presentation.
Would you give us your name and identify yourself for the record?
My name is Andrew Scales. I'm with Cal Poly Planning Department.
Where is Andrew? There he is. Complete Streets.
It's not showing up. Let me over here. Okay, that's good. All right, so the project I worked on is called Preparing San Juan Bautista for Complete Streets Implementation. And during the general planning process, we were writing policies and goals for circulation element, and one of them was complete streets, which is required by state law. And what complete streets, if you haven't picked up already, it's planning for all users of the road. So that's pedestrians, cyclists, automobile drivers, transit users, and drivers of delivery trucks. So when we were writing these goals, I was thinking to myself, we got all these goals in place, but how does a city start? How does city staff? Where do they start? What do they do? And so that was the inspiration for this project. Kind of the need for this project, other than meeting state law requirements, which is met by the general plan, was that complete streets is actually a very useful thing for this city, because one of the things is San Juan Bautista has an older population, so now and in the future there's going to be fewer people who can drive. And what's important in such a small city as this is that you need to be able to get around. And so having complete streets, so having ADA accessible sidewalks throughout the city, having the option to bike, having transit amenities, those are all important. So what I did, my first kind of step was to look at the municipal code to see if there were any dangerous codes in there that would kind of just roadblock complete streets implementation. So I'm gonna quickly, this is all me writing stuff. That's not the fun stuff. Here's the fun stuff. Appendix 1. So these are some proposed additions I made to the municipal code. The first one was in Chapter 7, Streets. And you look here, you can see it's basically just adding that cars, vehicles are not allowed to wait in the bikeway of any street. So just as they're not allowed to wait in like a curb next to the police station or in front of a fire hydrant, they wouldn't be able to wait in a bike lane or a sharo, so a shared bike lane / vehicle lane. And really all this was doing is extending the rights that everyone else has to bicyclists. And then this continued on to the next. There's a parallel parking, same idea. If you look down at the bottom here, it says it shall be unlawful to park any vehicle wherein any part of the vehicle extends into a bikeway. And so this is plain language saying don't park in a bike lane or don't park in the street. These were the only two additions to the municipal code that I saw would add to complete streets. It's a short code, kind of relative to the size of the city, so there wasn't really any danger to it. What I did find, though, when I was looking at the zoning ordinance was this ordinance about bike racks. So if you read here, it says basically 1 bike space for every 10 vehicle spaces with a minimum of 1 space. And this is when development comes in and they have to provide vehicle parking spaces for the project. They also have to provide biking. What I saw here was while it's a good start, it's not, I wouldn't call it adequate enough for if you're going to implement complete streets in San Juan Bautista. You need something a little more robust. You certainly need more than 1 bike space, because that's probably all you're going to get looking at the amount of land that's able to develop, the number of projects that are going to be more than 10 vehicle spaces, especially in the downtown where you want people biking. So what I came up with is a proposed bicycle parking zoning ordinance. And if you notice, it looks similar to the vehicle parking ordinance that San Juan Bautista has. I modeled it off of that so that it was familiar to people who already know the code. And I used the City of Boston's bicycle parking guidelines as an example to get some of the requirements. What I want to pull us to is kind of here, if you look at acceptable bike rack placement and design, this sets the framework for what's an acceptable bike rack, so you don't get some dinky little thing that no one's going to be able to hook their bike up to. And it does allow some creativity as long as the city manager approves it. So it can conform to like the San Juan Bautista character. Like ideas like horse hitching posts if you want to make that into a bike rack. And scrolling down further, this is one of the reasons why I picked City of Boston is they had in their bike guidelines covered and secure bicycle parking. If you are going to leave your bike overnight at a residence, you're certainly not going to want to leave it on a bike rack on the sidewalk or next to the sidewalk. And so the idea behind covered secure bike parking space is that you'll be able to lock it up and not have to worry about it. I didn't do anything for single family home because they have backyards and bigger houses, and you're certainly not going to put it in a locker on the front of your house or something like that. So this applies to multifamily dwellings, and then there's also requirements for office and industrial and retail. So the next item is the Complete Streets ordinance. So this is from, there's a national nonprofit organization called Change Lab Solutions, and their primary focus is on health. And what they've realized in the past couple of years is that active transportation has a big impact on people's health. And so they developed this Complete Streets ordinance that a city can take and kind of tailor it to their own environment. And so that's what I did. So it starts off with some findings like we have for any ordinance, and these can, of course, when the city has it, they can change them if they don't feel like these are appropriate. So it says things like, it's basically saying why the city of San Juan Bautista thinks complete streets are important and why the city should have them. One of the reasons behind why a city should adopt the complete streets ordinance is it helps with funding. If you're going to try and go for a grant to implement complete streets in your city, if you haven't even adopted an ordinance, they're going to say, well, every other city has an ordinance. They're more likely to go through with their plan on complete streets, so we'll give them the money. And it says to the citizens of San Juan Bautista that we're serious about complete streets. You know, we're not going to pass this in the general plan and then never talk about it again. So it starts off with findings. There's 10 of them, and there's all these sources. And then section 2, they have definitions here, basically saying what is a complete street infrastructure, like you mentioned, labeling out environmental impact report, that's important. That's why there's a definition section in this ordinance. And there's the requirement of infrastructure ensuring safe travel. And what this is, it's basically saying what the planning department or whatever identified department, what they will do and what they promise to do. And anywhere where it seemed like, I communicated with Matt about this, and we got some of the language. Anywhere where it seemed like San Juan Bautista probably doesn't have the money for it, or no one's going to be able to do that, we don't have the time, we replaced the shalls with shoulds, just so that's still in there, but it's not binding.
People don't like that.
And then there's some data collection and public input, saying like the city of San Juan Bautista will do some outreach. They'll not just do a road design and not talk to anyone about it. And of course the last section saying if you want to cut something out of this, you can just cut out that part without cutting the whole thing. This is some legal defense part. Now this, the complete streets components, the Monterey Bay Area governments, they put out a complete streets guidebook, and in the general plan it calls to adopt this guidebook as kind of a planning document for complete streets. And they have these 8 different user zones. That's basically, you got your travel lane, your pedestrian zone, which is a sidewalk. You have your parked vehicle zone. So I went through, I have the definitions for each zone. I did some findings based on observations of San Juan Bautista and from what people mentioned during the general plan process. And then some recommendations. And like my recommendations for the bike, the bike zones is in line with what Eric and Daniel recommended. And my other classmate, Zarina, did a very extensive parking study, and her recommendation should be taken on the vehicle parking zone. So these are just findings and recommendations I've made. And the last item here is, so this is from the Monterey Bay, or Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments.
AMBAG.
Their complete streets guidebook. And so they have some street types that they call, Main Street zone. This would be your 3rd Street. Avenues, and on each it says, design the street, where should, or how fast should people going, kind of which users should be prioritized in this area. And these here, so these are the components, the user zones. And my last item was similar to what Eric did, but instead of doing a full design, I kind of took a preliminary, planning level, not in-depth cross sections. And what this does is these can be used by the Public Works or the Planning Department to kind of just get the ball rolling on thinking about complete streets. It provides some visualization. And these are done using a tool called streetmix.net. Anyone can do it. Anyone in the audience, it's very easy. It's a drag and drop kind of tool. When you're using it, they'll be down here. There'll be all your components you can pick, and you just drag it and drop it up here, and then you enter in the width of each section that you want. And so it's very easy to use, and it can be shared through Twitter, Facebook, some of the other social media sites. So what the city can do with these is they can share very easily and very quickly with a lot of people. So they can have a general idea, say, hey, we're going to have a new road over here, what are your thoughts? And here's a quick idea that we thought. And then everyone can say, oh, what are you doing over here? That's a stupid idea. And so before going into a full design, spending a lot of money on a consultant, you can get a pretty detailed idea of what people want. I have some sample cross sections for the main street, the avenue with 80 feet, and then some other ones with 60 feet avenue. And these are all big level, more to help the staff when they're designing or thinking about these. Less of a, you have to follow these, that's not the intent. And here are some rural ones. Here's a simple rural one that costs less. So that was my project. I went through pretty quick. If you have any questions, please.
My comment, when you put together a package like this, use line numbers for evaluations. This way, if people were talking to you, they could refer to a particular line and so many words in a line.
I just took this straight. This is the PDF of my report, and so
it's just a thought, you know.
No, that's a good idea if I'm going to present it. I know when I'm reading, I've been to the planning commission before. When they have a line numbers, it's so much easier.
Okay.
It takes a click of the.
Yeah. Well, is that?
Just one click.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Oh, quick, we have some comments or questions?
Some comments about San Juan Bautista is specifically when we're looking at plans, and I don't see any pictures of tents that we might use because we use our streets for events, festivals, and so forth. I'm being facetious, but we do have our streets, our main streets, very frequently used as a source of fundraising, and we have festivals in the streets, and then all of these plans for cars and people are set aside.
Yeah, and I mean those are special events, so you're not going to plan for them. But like you said, I think closing down the streets for these events, like San Luis Obispo does it all the time for the farmers market. And I love it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, those need to be. When we have complete streets, we need to think that it's entirely different situation from time. Can we accommodate? And the other thing is you use the word bike. Does that mean motorcycle?
It's a bicycle.
We've got them. And those concerns need to be addressed as well.
I worked on the noise element of the general plan, and even when we were out here we were on the street doing surveys with people, I'd be asking questions and a bike would vroom, vroom, vroom come by, and no one could hear what I was saying. So I feel you on the motorcycle problem, but as far as complete streets go, I don't think you can exclude a certain type of vehicle. You can't say, okay, no motorcycles on this road, but you can do things like providing parking at the edge of town. And I know it's a contentious topic, but if you charge for parking right in front of the bars and meters on 3rd Street, then and you provide free parking at the edge of town, you know, where they're going to park at the meter or at the edge of town, maybe they'll stop riding through town.
If you want to see motorcycles, drop by Hollister on the 4th of July. There should be 50, 60,000 of them.
A street event.
There is good news, though. Back in Schwarzenegger's administration, he passed the law limiting how loud new bicycles or motorcycles could be.
Nice.
We could
80
enforce
decibels.
that.
Still really loud, but I guess you take what you can get.
You heard me earlier talking about abbreviations. What's a NACTO, N-A-C-T-O?
NACTO, it is the National Association of City Transportation Officials.
Okay.
And what they put out is they put out an urban street design guide as well as an urban street bicycle guide. And I've mentioned them in my report, and those are two very useful tools on, especially on street widths and on design. It's they're pretty much all pictures with some very descriptive sections, and then they give links to studies on why they made those decisions.
Okay. Thanks a lot, and best of luck in your career.
Thank you.
Okay, now back to the San Juan Bautista Planning Commission. 7B, D'Ambrosio Vista PUD. I guess we're getting a report on this.
It was brief.
Yeah, very brief.
Yeah, real brief, yeah.
I thought
As you recall, the Ambrosio resubmitted revised tentative map to 27 lots. We're going through the staff report, reviewing it.
Can't hear you.
And we're reviewing it, and we're going to circulate the environmental document. We're modifying the conditions of approval, and we'll bring in that back to you at the July 1st meeting.
Okay.
The environmental documents being circulated
Yes,
for public comment?
yes.
By state law.
I know. Where is it and what's the deadline?
It's circulated for 20 days. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the deadline is?
June the 29th, I think, is the end of the comment period.
Okay.
Is it available online?
It will be, yeah, we haven't put it online yet.
Good. Okay. Annexations update.
Again, real brief, we've got a tax sharing agreement with the county that paves the way for annexations. There are several house cleaning items that we're going to do with annexation. Our well number 3, about 3/4 of an acre on San Juan Road and Hollister San Juan Road. It's in the county. We want to do some work on that, and that would facilitate us submitting a building permit to the county and paying a fee. We want to get it into the city so we can do our pellet plant and construction. Also, Elaine Reyna, who is at the corner where Old Finchie's Bar used to be. Half her house is in the city and half is in the county. We're going to annex, and she came in and she wants to annex the remaining of hers. Incidentally, that other half that we want to annex is outside the urban growth boundary. And again, that's why I'd like to have the ability to adjust the urban growth boundary so we can get her other half in. The 1/3 of the cemetery is in the county and 2/3 is into the city. We'd like to get that all into the city. The triangular piece of the Christopher Ranch that's inside the city limits, I mean it's outside the city limits, but inside their property. It's a little triangle piece of about 1¼ acres or something like that. And we'd like to get that so it rounds off our city limits lines. The Manning property, the 14 acres, that's zoned commercial, they would like to bring that into the city, as well as the 19 acres of the south that we adjusted the urban growth boundaries 2 years ago to facilitate an agricultural business park. And so those are the two big pieces that are going to come in. So we're working on that. The requirements from the LAFCO, it's very stringent, where we have to submit a plan of service and show how we're going to service the property, as well as the resolution.
Yeah, these make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. No comments? Recycling zoning code update.
Okay, Matt was here and everything. Basically, we've had an application to do a recycling at the Neal's Market. And we found that it doesn't facilitate in our zoning ordinance as an allowable use. And it doesn't even mention the type, because it says recycling, and that's for a processing plant, where they're just want to process a recycling collection that will facilitate, plastic bottles, aluminum cans and stuff like that, and so that and our current ordinance doesn't allow that in terms of the stuff. And so what we want to do is we want to come back and change the ordinance to allow that. Now the other aspect is that could they do it as a conditional use permit, but it's not significantly allowed in that, uses allowed in that zoning district.
Well, right now, we have a recycling bin there, right? There's one
Yes.
sticking out there?
There's one, and that was put in by a clothing outfit, I think, and they have a couple of them around town for clothing and everything. Now, the applicants are in the audience here, they can come and speak forward, and they run an excellent ship and everything, and they're going to basically facilitate an operation right next to Neal's Market, but then every evening they're going to be out of there and clean up, and so there won't be a lot of debris.
Hi.
I spoke to you about a month or so ago.
We just give you a name for the record, sir?
Oh, Steve Nichols. It's Fort Kids Recycling is the name of the company. Anyway, we were wanting to set up over here to do this, and we're going to do a variance that we had discussed. And the timeline with the state was last meeting, our license, we had to be active the day after the last meeting. I was trying to get an extension on that, but to no avail. I didn't get anything from the state. They never returned my call after contacting them 5 times. Matt had discussed that matter with the recycling, Cal Recycling, and he got a hold of them. And then I talked to her, and she said it would be 2 weeks, and that was already too late for an extension there. So anyway, I refiled for my Cal Recycling license. That's already in action there. And what we're looking for now is an amendment, I guess, to be able to operate over here, just to make this thing happen, get it going. It's just going to be CRD collections, to help the community out.
Well, I think it's important that it's done right, because you don't want to be challenged by somebody, and then we would have no defense because it wasn't allowed. So by changing the ordinance itself, that sets you.
And you can see in the staff report where it's a permitted use only in industrial, and so that kind of drop off. And so we'd like to be able to change the ordinance. And I think on the second page, on the back page, we said there was a recycling processing, which should be an industrial, but then there's a recycling facility drop-off, and we're saying is it should be permitted in commercial or mixed use with a site review. Yeah. So it's permitted with an S designation, and that's site and design review.
So when will this go into effect if we were to?
If you feel comfortable with that, we can bring it back to the planning commission, and then it'll have to be changed by an ordinance. And
So it's like 3 or 4 months away before they can go into business.
I would say at the earliest, probably 90 days. It was a kind of something that when the original uses were allowed in the zoning district, and no one really differentiated between a recycling processing and a drop-off. And they said that all recycling should go in industrial. The society has changed, and we do a lot of CRV recovery.
Got to make it convenient.
We're really promoted by the state, and it's really good for our economy and the environment.
So every night they're gonna pick it up, clean it up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they had the last one there, those people had one there?
They had one gentleman there, I guess, was there.
They had a trailer there, yeah.
And another guy was there for 10 years
I'm
before
going
him.
out of town today. Quite a while. But this is not an issue.
Oh, it's a discussion.
Just a discussion.
No, I concur that you know, it's got to be
Then we gotta
convenient
prepare it anyways, so.
if people are going to use it. And if it's going to, if you got to drive all the way across town, across the highway, you're not going to do it. So yeah, I would, I could support that. So I guess work with staff, and we'll get that on the July agenda.
Now,
See if we can run it.
just a question. You said it may take 90 days?
Well, state law requires a public hearing here.
Okay.
We run it to the plant with city council, and they have to have 2 hearings on it.
Okay.
And then following that, again, state law, 30 days for an appeal period before it goes into effect.
Right. Because once I reapply for this license, I have 60 days to get this thing up and running, and I'll have to reapply again if it's over 60 days. So that's.
Yeah, staff will work a calendar with you for sure, and that way when you make your application, say, hey guys.
Okay.
On the other hand, he could, we already have that allowed in the industrial area, so if you could find one in the industrial zone, which is out of town.
Now, that's the weak part about our land use. The only industrial zoning is at the corner of Mission Vineyard Road and San Juan Hollister. And that's way out of town. It's not next to any supermarket or shopping, so it really defeats the whole purpose. We talked about that. Why would he want to go clear out there when there's nobody around?
Well, in order to
I
expedite
figure that's what garbage cans are for. Yeah, no, I think I put you in the category of performing a public service. So yeah, I support this.
Now, there is a provision where after the first reading and introduction of an ordinance, then the city council can meet within 5 days after and then make the adoption.
Oh, right, second hearing.
That's what they call a streamlined effect.
But we can't do that process.
That's council.
We can have a public hearing in July and recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next one is, let's see, parking and city update. Parking in the city.
I don't have anything.
E.
No answer here?
So that was just kind of a verbal staff report, if you will. Last month, the City Council, they received your letter from Commissioner Franco from the Planning Commission, basically saying that parking's a big issue in the city, and that all the local stakeholders need to come get together, the city, mission, state park, and the school. From the city council's conversations, nothing was really kind of defined as far as what would happen. They had kind of said a few different things, and that's kind of where it was left. I know, we're really anxious, staff is, to get those parties together. As we just had a Cal Poly student put together this inventory about parking. We also had the strategic plan committee say that they wanted to participate in bringing all those stakeholders to the same table. And so it's an item that we tend to bring back in front of the city council next week, actually, to get their direction, as none was really given.
Well, if you got the,
I was just saying, so you brought the letter forward and you presented it to city council, and you're telling us right now that they had nothing to say about that?
Oh, no.
No,
There was no action taken?
They had a lot to say about it and everything. They're just searching for what's the best avenue to approach the subject. And I talked to them privately, and I told them, I says, really the buck stops at the city council. And the only way that they're going to get any action from the schools, state park, and the church is to have a meeting with them, a representative of the city council, and says, hey, we've got a problem on bus parking, and we have a problem, and how are we going to solve it? And start bringing it to a head. And with the help of the strategic plan and Matt, the planning department, we've got to start to collaborate with all those agencies to say, how are we going to solve this problem? Because if nothing happens, just like Commissioner Franco said, it's only going to get worse.
But in the conclusion of that meeting, do they come back and say that in the next meeting, we're going to have an answer for you, or? how we're gonna set this up, or?
That's up to the staff to bring it back to them and seek an answer.
Yeah, could we, I would like, I mean, just to let the letter go out and say, this is what we want. We would like to have some kind of direction from city council saying to us that we received your letter and this is the action we're gonna take on it. And the steps we're gonna take on it is that we set up a meeting for such and such a day. And I'm hoping that's what they're gonna come back
You and
with.
I know as well is that there's a lot of meetings and we can get into it, but I think you have to establish a collaborative meeting of all of the stakeholders to develop a plan or a strategy to solve this problem. The city owns the right-of-way, and we could put no bus parking signs all over. That's not going to solve the problem.
That makes it inconvenience. You know, if you have any of the students doing interviews, make sure they have a copy of that letter so they see, and whoever they're talking to, say, hey, this isn't just a student, this is a city issue. And just give them a little bit more strength when they're doing interviews. They got their commission.
Is it
Well, wait,
discussion, is it on the agenda at all, or is it something on the city council? It is?
Yes.
Okay, so the next meeting we have with them would be together for the general plan update.
That's the 16th.
Will that be part of a discussion, or will that be part of the agenda?
No, that's just for the
Special
general plan.
meeting.
Yeah.
I just want to interject that some of the people that are on the church board are actually lining the parking spaces in the lot that's next to Casa Maria, where we used to have our fire. Okay, they're making it into a parking lot for the fiesta. And there's no reason why it couldn't be used for the rest of the year in the same manner.
See, that's part of what the discussion's all about.
And that's what I'm saying.
See, it isn't.
No one said anything about that, so I thought I'd better.
Yeah, but see, everybody's been talking to everybody at the lowest levels. And that's not where the action is. You don't talk to me, you talk to a council member if you want something in the city. You talk to the bishop if you want something there, or the superintendent of schools, or the chair of the school board, and the, I guess the governor over here. But all those agencies have to be, they're like stakeholders. They all have to be involved in the solution. Because we may have the power of government, they've got the land. There's a difference there. Okay. Any other comments on that, or?
No, that's it.
Just a matter of watching away?
I think we're all on the same page to this. I think we're all headed in the right direction. It's just I'm thinking that with the letter that we started, we started the action, I believe we did it as far as commission goes. We just need to follow up and get closure.
You start the ball rolling, and now it just has to get a little momentum.
I think that's the key thing. And then he's got staff, and he's got the students, and one of the students already did an inventory, so he's got ammunition to take to a meeting.
And after the buses, then we tackle the whole problem? I know that it seems as if we're tackling buses. They're not here.
No, that's all part of it.
It'll be a small part of it, and
No,
the parking is the whole.
Our letter just does not talk about buses, it talks about parking.
You talk about the whole.
Yeah, so
issue of parking.
If whoever goes to that meeting, the world is open. There's no limits.
Okay.
Okay. Next item, brewery update.
Okay, just to let you know, the applicant came and finally we got the site plan and all the grading plans. I reviewed them, stamped them approval. We're ready to issue the permits and there was a little hiccup. The architect, the original architect was dismissed from the garage, from the project, and he went to the design engineer and says not to complete the site design. So we had to struggle through that. We finally resolved that issue, and the M&H finished the design. We reviewed it, all the grades, all the infrastructure. We've approved it. It's ready to be issued permit. They were in today, and they'll be probably pulling the permit tomorrow, and then work will recommence within the next week.
I wondered about that. Was this basically what's called a intellectual property issue?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Question?
Is the
landscape design going to come back to you?
The landscaping plan will come back to there. They submitted me the original one. We didn't like it. We rejected it, and it's going to come back. It's going to come back to us. Yeah.
There you see it.
And so I'll be bringing that back to you.
Okay, next one is this wayfinding update. I should ask, are you lost?
Excuse me?
I should ask, are you lost? Wayfinding.
That's a good jump
Just a
in.
little bit. So just to give you an update, or kind of an overview for those in the audience, the city is working with both the City of Hollister and San Benito County on a wayfinding project. We've participated in basically a full-blown wayfinding study for the whole county, and it includes San Juan Bautista. And so from working with the staff of the consultant who's doing the wayfinding, originally they had given us kind of a boilerplate template for signs in San Juan Bautista, and I looked at them and I was kind of like, well, I don't think this is ever going to work here. So let me touch base with some people who have shared their interest in wayfinding in the community, and let me see what they already kind of had put together. So anyways, what I had done was reached out to a few different people. I reached out to Valerie Egeland, who had kind of worked on some wayfinding designs and so forth, as well as kind of brought this to the San Juan Committee, where Richard Ponce and Helena Kleinsmith were able to kind of give me some of their feedback and so forth. So I kind of gathered all that information, sent it back to the consultant, said, hey, we're going to need these signs to fit in with the character of San Juan Bautista, and here's some ideas, and kind of let them, run with it. As you can see, there's kind of 3 different signs, and these are more or less, there's different levels of signs. So you can imagine, as you're driving from 101 and you're coming into the county on 156, and you're coming up to San Juan Bautista, the signs are going to be bigger, to accommodate the speed that you're traveling in whatever vehicle you're in. These signs are secondary signs, so they're more so when you're coming into town and directing you where those certain destinations are. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of bring these forward tonight to show you all, to kind of get some of your initial feedback. What we were more or less trying to go with was, obviously having some kind of text that's going to fit in. Obviously we want to make sure, if someone's coming from a different country, they may not be able to read, that there's some kind of logos possibly identifying certain areas, whether it be the mission or possible downtown or state park. Kind of having some of the wood look, whether it be wood posts or metal signs that do resemble wood, but are also functional if you're driving at night and give you that reflective visibility. Some of the other things I kind of had said, hey, maybe a sign that kind of looks like an adobe with part of the plaster broken off. I don't know if their attempt of that was I don't know. So I gave them that feedback. But so anyways, what we're looking for is overall functionality, but also fitting in character-wise, and wanted to bring this in front of you tonight. But also that we'd like to work on getting somewhat of a solid design together, so they can kind of make it as part of their report that they're putting together. And I don't know if that would require some kind of subcommittee of some sort, but what I had recommended to the consultant who is doing this work was that if they could give me the the hard original files. I mean, I've worked on design files and so forth, and I can make edits in a subcommittee, and we can come up with, however many renditions that we wanted, and come up with something that we feel is pretty good to pass on to them. So, are there any questions? Yes, Georgiana.
My question is not about this exactly. Those brown signs that we've been wishing for out on the highway, the historic marker sign is, when I came off of 101 onto 25, it said San Juan Bautista and directed me clear through Highway 25, clear past the sewer plant going to Hollister, to the stoplight, and then back to San Juan. Now, why is our sign out there? This wayfinding committee, have they lost it? Or I know they're not really part of that thing, but what happened?
That sounds like something that's on 101 that's in Santa Clara County.
It's right on the overpass coming out of Gilroy. When you get up to where you're going to go down into 25 and go on off to Hollister. It says San Juan Bautista, the mission. Nice little thing there. Clear past the sewer in Hollister.
Really?
I'll look for that.
I haven't seen that.
It's right at Highway 25.
I'd like up on the bridge.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
On the bridge?
Yeah,
When
there
you're going,
it was.
when you're going south?
On 25.
When I'm coming south and I'm going to go to Hollister,
Yeah.
there it was.
Have to look for that.
Wow, I gotta
Well,
check that out.
that's in Santa Clara County, but I'll check into that and see.
We could use that downtown here.
Well, see, they want you to go by and buy crops, buy goodies at all the different stands.
There weren't any. There weren't any.
there because he wants people to turn and come back.
But, so whoever puts out those signs, I've forgotten whether those brown ones are State Park. Valerie knows the brown ones, the brown ones, the green ones, Anyway.
Okay, well, we know we have some issues here.
Couldn't resist.
So,
Well, Mike, are we?
did you guys like those?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
loved them.
what I was looking for,
Yeah.
because I like to give a design back to this consultant group.
I think the thing is, do we want to have the word San Juan Bautista on the sign, on the master sign there, with the little guys below it, or do you want to have just the information, the mission, downtown, the plaza, Calabozo, whatever, and then the third one has a couple of logos on it. It doesn't say San Juan, but you're in San Juan. So I don't have to tell you that. My thought was, I don't want to put too much on those signs, just the key information so people will move faster. If they start reading, if there's all this other information they don't really need, it just slows up traffic.
If I can just add something, because
Sure.
I know it's kind of more, it's more detailed than what I explained, but there's different levels of signage, like I was saying. So you're in an automobile, you're driving 60 miles an hour, San Juan Bautista, the mission this way. Okay, then you're coming into town, you're slowing down, and then you're wondering, okay, here's the historical downtown, here's the mission, restaurants, and so forth. And then as you park, then there's another level of signs which are for pedestrians, and kind of showing, okay, here's, where's parking.
More detail.
These different things. So there's these different levels of the signage, and the placement of these are key. And you can see these in, a lot of cities, even throughout the Bay Area, where you come in and you'll see those wayfinding signs. So anyways, what I was looking from the commission and folks of the audience was, as far as character-wise, because the specifics of where these are going to be sending you and what is it going to say, those are things that we'll work out later once we see that plan of where these are going to be specifically placed. But that, design, the look, the shape, the feel, the character, that's kind of, if everyone likes this, and I can pass it on to the consultant and say, hey, that everyone likes this for putting up signs all around downtown and on your way throughout our little area, our little community. Because that's what they're going to be proposing as part of this document, is the placement and the look and how much it's going to cost and things like that to have wayfinding.
You know,
Maybe it's too late for...
Chair?
Yeah.
Want to recognize somebody here?
I have a comment on this because I answered questions to so many tourists being that I did on Monday. So I'm looking at the very first one you have with the external shape of the
This
mission.
one here?
So I would like to see that right where that triangle comes together because we had a lack there. You know,
We're at the Valero station?
At the, sort of, right there where McKelvey goes this way, Monterey here, and so, because that's real clear. You go straight ahead for the mission.
Oh.
You go historic downtown and the state park, and the logos there are real clear.
Yeah,
That's my contribution, because people stop me whenever I'm gardening. Where's the mission?
So that's the goal of these signs, is to
Yeah, to
make
make
it
it
at every
clear,
junction.
you know, right.
At every junction, you know, okay,
Right.
hey, I want to go see the mission. Even if you can't read the mission, you got the symbol. Or logo. Oh, thank you.
I was going to say that I like the first one on your left because it gives you simple directions, you know,
This one here?
it points out each item, yeah. Where'd he go? I like the upper one. I think the adobe wall is a nice touch. And the logo is a good touch too, I think. But you're saying if you're going to choose a sign, you're saying that you're looking for a pattern right now that would be consistent. In other words, when you see the first one, you're going to be looking for the second one. It's going to look the same way.
Yep, and
that's what you want. So you're not looking to put one type in one place, another type. So I would go with the first one on your far left.
And similarly, when you're traveling throughout the county, so if you're leaving San Juan Bautista, Hollister's this way, Pinnacles are this way.
Right.
When you're still going to be in the same system when you're in the county.
Right.
So when you go elsewhere, you'll see similar setup like this, but it'll say, San Benito County and, San Justo Reservoir this way, Pinnacles this way. So you're going to be finding your way through the whole system through a similar framework, but we wanted to look totally different in San Juan Bautista to represent us because what they had proposed was not.
Yeah. Just like the Seagull, is it the Seagull route in San Francisco? Yeah. I mean, you find a seagull and it takes you all over on a tour route of San Francisco, which is really cool. You're always looking for that same sign. Okay.
Tell them that Calabozo is misspelled.
What was?
Calabozo.
Okay.
He's got a G there. There should be a C. The word calaboose, that's where it comes from.
Okay.
Chris. Anyway, Chris?
I've worked on retail packaging for many years, and so I've come to realize that often in reviewing this stuff, it becomes very subjective. Do you like it or don't you like it? And I think that that's really a secondary consideration, or should be a secondary consideration. My experience has been that I'm most successful in retail packaging when I turn it over to a professional who understands how people think and interact with the signage or the labeling to accomplish a task. And my first reaction is that they're very difficult to read.
Yep.
The fonts are difficult to read. The icons are cute, but don't necessarily communicate much, other than the bell tower does, obviously. That's pretty iconic for the city. The bear for the state park doesn't really have any meaning for a general visitor. My feedback would be that if I think that you pointed out that the state has a fairly recognizable and frequently repeated format for historic markers and historic signage. Well, for instance, the sign you referred to on the overpass is we see those signs repeated everywhere. I would consider mimicking those signs here and using basically that same format, fonts, colors to do the wayfinding here in the city. and I would look around. These don't look like any wayfinding signs really that I've spent a lot of time looking at them because it's something that's come up in the discussions of the Strategic Planning Committee. And they tend to be much more plain, simple, so that the message is what shines through, not the art. We're not interested in them picking up on the art and liking the art. We want to communicate clearly as somebody's driving by where they're supposed to go, what the, and that's really the purpose of it. So that would be my feedback. Again, I like those state historic marker signs very much as an attempt to it.
Yeah, somebody put a lot of time into those other things,
Yeah.
Psychologically. And I agree with you, fonts are very important.
Okay, so my next question is, when are we going to get the signs?
Well, if you guys like these, I'll order them tonight.
No, I didn't say that. I go along with Chris that you need a professional person to set these up and to do some research on them, make sure that we go with the proper signs and what have you. I think that's good. But how soon can we get these up? I mean,
so that's what this
who are we
consultant.
waiting for? And
Well, waiting on us.
just waiting on us. Okay.
Yeah. No. So that's what this consultant does. They do wayfinding. They're outfit out of Arizona, and what this is probably as an attempt from me to try to fit in. If this commission wants to go with a more simple, functional. I mean, that was kind of boilerplate what they gave us, but I said no. But maybe there's a balance in between where you can have some of these different shapes. Maybe have more legible. Text that or font that still resembles an historical older font, but it's not just new block lettering.
See, they used horses and buggies in those days, and
but some of their recommendations, and the other things.
Well, I'd like to get together maybe like a subcommittee of some people. I mean, I'm going to be reaching out to the people that I named that I kind of got the original ideas from.
I think got a chairperson standing up.
Yes, Chris.
So the Strategic Planning Committee has a subcommittee for business development and tourism, and I would respectfully suggest that might be an already existing body that could be tasked with.
Get some feedback from them.
Okay.
I think the key thing, though, it's nice. I mean, I like the old-fashioned lettering. I have no problem with it. But what kind of a bang am I going to get for the buck I'm putting out? If the guy's driving through and it's too complicated for the eye to read because they're so used to seeing those state signs and vertical cap letters, and all of a sudden they come to this thing, if they have to start looking a couple of times, it's going to slow them down, cause an accident, or they're going to miss the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So it's not against you, that I personally like it, but I'm trying to think of how do we get that message pull off here?
They did have some different variations of it, and I think we should bring that back too and take a look at it, because I think they have been in a lot of cities and they have a variety of things that could fit.
Some of those would probably be good for walkers. Mm-hmm. If you're walking, that'd be a good sign. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you get in that car, we're speaking a different language. I mean, it's...
So what I'm hearing is maybe for the pedestrian signs we have more detail, because I had the idea that if the sign looked like wood, you could have a little square nail on there. So just the detail, there could be more detail for pedestrians because you are going at a slower pace compared to a vehicle where you don't want to have too much visual clutter and things like that.
We want you to pull off, not think about it.
Yeah. But as far as the overall shape and those, something that could fit in, or just square. You want to just go with square?
Well, I think the other thing too, there's only a couple of things we need to do here, right? One is the mission. The other is historical downtown.
State park.
What's the third one? Is parking.
State park.
And state park.
Library.
And library. Well, you already got library signs.
Cemetery.
Oh, and a cemetery. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
but that's when you're here in town.
Yeah, so at different locations they'll have things broken. They'll even direct you to City Hall if you're kind of in a certain area. to parks and different things, even community parks, civic, services and things. So those are a list that I put together originally and gave it to them, said, here's all the important stuff in town that we would want to sign, and different signs would have those different things signed.
Yeah, but I'm thinking back to what she had said about people who come to ask you where places are at. What are the few things that they ask you? One is the mission. Where's downtown?
Bathrooms.
Where are the bathrooms? Gas station. How do you get out of town?
Parking.
After that, when you're here, then we can have the multiple signs to where to go.
Yep.
But it's getting so that we have residents putting signs out already.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't noticed lately.
Or you have signs that are not effective. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you for.
How many do you have?
As far as what they look like, or what? And they look historic, or what did they do specifically? Or they
Check them out. That's easier. Just pull the website, check them out.
send me that again, please?
Future agenda items. Anybody want anything on the agenda, or think we've got enough to?
We have so many things, Mr. Chairman, but I've been
But we don't have a sign code anymore.
I really am concerned about having a historic district overlay because houses are being built that could have just been passed by historic design review for some suggestions to not make them quite so different from what the neighbors think of them. So if we had a historic district overlay for design review, I think we'd be ahead of the game.
Citywide?
Isn't that what you were, historic district overlay, that we would have it citywide? I thought several months ago that we talked about this.
Would you and Vanda want to take on a project of doing some research, because staff is tight, and this is really a general plan issue, but you could pull a bunch of data from how other historical cities handle this. And I know the American Planning Association has it, and the Governor's Office of Planning Research probably has some stuff. And through League of California Cities, just tell me, I want copies of ordinances that look like this. And then we can bring an agenda item up, and you give a report on different ways to go.
Yeah, well, when she gets back, I'll talk with her.
Would you consider that? No, I'm not, it's not a put down, but I mean,
But,
they don't have the time for research right now, but this would be a good project to work on, because the Historic Resources Board said, look, here's how other cities have overlay ordinances, and
We'll talk to Cara.
and then you can, from that, then you go into pulling together a package that we could work with.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll designate you and Vanda as a committee to research historical overlay districts. And if you want help on finding some of these people, let me know, and I'll do that. Okay, comments, commissioners? No comments. No comments. City manager? Okay, I would like to ask a question from you. What's the status of our water?
We're still using well number 2, which still has nitrates in it. The nitrates vary from 42 to 46. We're blending it with well number 1. We're getting a composite rate at the reservoir of about 32 to 33. So it's well under 45. However, we can't lift the notice until we can guarantee the Department of Public Health that we have good water coming from either one.